across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's coming up to 3 minutes past 1 on a Friday afternoon. I'm Mark Dolan, in for the brilliant Ian Collins. Lovely to have your company. Nice toasty conditions out there in central London. I hope things are going your way. Of course, the weekend starts here. I'm back on Weekend Breakfast tomorrow and Sunday. But this afternoon, should foreign nationals be entitled to council housing and benefits? Well, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the opposition, says no, arguing British families should come first. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Text the word Talk and your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? Meanwhile, police make arrests in Norfolk after disorder linked to accommodation for asylum seekers. So why are tensions over immigration rising? Has immigration created civil unrest? I'd like your answer on that one. And Rupert Lowe, the leader of Restore UK, sparks controversy after declining to describe King Charles as a white Briton. What's going on? What a time to be alive. A big afternoon and a very big conversation. You can hear the show on DAB+, in-app and online. If you want to watch the show, head to YouTube, search Talking Up We Pop. A little toasty in the studio this afternoon. And a hot debate. Has immigration created civil unrest, and should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? I need your help with this. 0344 499 1000. This is the Home and Common Sense. Let's talk. And let's kick off with Dolan's dispatch. A fierce debate is raging following the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch's announcement that people from overseas will no longer be eligible for social housing following a previous policy to announce a limit to benefits to people born outside of the UK. Now, the truth is that whilst this may be an ugly conversation, politics is about hard choices. And the news yesterday that our national debt has reached £3 trillion, a number so large you could barely write it on a calculator, that ought to focus minds. Folks, we are broke. The cupboard is bare. We're also running not just the massive national debt, we are running a monthly deficit, borrowing in the region of an extra £20 billion every month just to keep the lights on. Now, to give you some context, that is the equivalent of using your credit card to buy milk in the supermarket or pay the electricity bill. Then there is the other elephant in the room, a diabolical lack of housing in this country as a result of the failure of multiple administrations over decades of all political colours. So there's no money and there are no houses. That is the long and the short of it. This at a time when we need billions to boost our prison estate. Right now, Labour are having to release thousands of domestic abusers and cop killers early. This at a time when we need to find at least £10 billion to boost our military spending in this ever-changing and ever more dangerous world. This at a time when the cost of servicing our debt alone is over £100 billion a year, which is more than half of the NHS budget and double that of education. And then there is the issue of fairness and the strong feeling that people have that because they were born in this country and they've worked all their lives and contributed into the system, it creates a deep sense of unfairness to see people not born in the UK receiving subsidised housing and benefits. Worth noting that there aren't too many countries around the world where you could get that. Good luck going to the United States, China, Singapore or the United Arab Emirates and expecting a roof over your head and a weekly wage packet. So we need a political establishment on the left and on the right that begins to govern in the national interest, which would mean cancelling the Chagos Islands surrender, which comes with a bill of £30 billion, which would mean curtailing the worst excesses of the net zero target. We all want a clean environment, but the current target is effectively deindustrialising the country and giving us the highest energy costs in Europe. And it means putting the British people of all races, of all creeds and colours, but the British people at the front of the queue for scarce state resources. Britain first sounds like a controversial slogan. It shouldn't be. It should be the governing principle of this country. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk, the home of common sense. A man that is the living embodiment of common sense is Steve N. Allen, comedian and broadcaster. Hi, Steve.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm very well indeed. And Steve, politics is about tough choices. The economy is absolutely broke. The cupboard's bare. And it seems like this conversation needs to be had.
Yeah, and also you can frame it this way, right? For anyone who wants to be bleeding heart about this, the best way to help people is to have an economy that works. The best way to help people is have a system that won't fall down pretty soon. When you're already up to 3 trillion of borrowing, it can't just be about borrowing and taxing and spending in areas that aren't going to help. So if you don't have the resources, you can't spend them. That's how you have to live your life. The nation's not that different. Some of you're right to point out other countries. I think we should just have like this blanket rule that if certain services would not be available in other countries, come up with a reason of why we should have to bend over backwards. Why should we put the UK lower than everyone else? What do you think we did wrong that now we have to pay for everything? Because if that's the discussion we want to have, we can have it. I don't think we'll agree on it, but at least we'll actually be having it out loud rather than pretending that somehow magically we should be funding absolutely everything. In the old days, I think you can make the same argument about if you've not paid in yet and you were born in this country. This is part of the problem of the joblessness that we have coming down the barrel. If you work and then you pay your contributions to your pension, and that's how your state pension would be funded, and that you have to actually contribute into a system before you could access the NHS, you start to have a model that then could be affordable. The only slight caveat is, and I hate caveating you, Mark, some of these things, when it comes to addressing the pull factors, worth doing, right? Like one of the stories today is about student loans going to people who aren't from the UK. Why? That makes no sense. If you don't get that student loan, you just don't go to university. But the idea about council housing, you end up being slightly hoisted by your own petard, because if you make people homeless, you end up having to put them in council housing then anyway. Do you know what I mean? So some of this can sound really good on paper, but actually the system itself, you want to deal with homeless people wherever they're from, you'll end up having to do something.
I think what's valuable is for us to have this conversation, Steve, and decide what it is that British people get and what it is they don't. The contract between citizen and state, I think, needs to be redrawn and reimagined for a different time, a time in which the economy is deeply in the red. I mean, we are broke, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 3 levers to pull, haven't you? You've got taxation, you've got borrowing, and you've got cutting spending. And listen, I'm not some kind of crazy person who thinks that it should be like zero tax. I'm not Bono. But I think, that you laugh a curve for tax. The same curves would exist for the other 2 levers, right? But we've already got the highest taxation since World War II. So you don't even have to be a mathematical genius to work out increasing that's not an option. Our borrowing's up near crazy numbers, 3 trillion. So again, you don't have to be some sort of crazy free market type of person to realise that's not sustainable. You've only got 1 lever left. Even if you do think a government can have some use in taxing and spending, you've got to realise the only thing we can do is cut spending right now. That's the only lever available to us.
So Kemi Badenoch, if you're just joining us, has pledged to evict foreign nationals from council housing under plans to end Britain's status as what she calls a cash machine for the world. No benefits for those born overseas either. What are the politics behind this, Steve? What's Kemi up to?
Well, I think finally the discussion's being had that we're actually allowed to talk about things now that for a while there was one side of the argument that instead of engaging in the argument controlled the narrative. You can't say that because if you say that, you're being racist or bigoted or something. If you can categorize the person who disagrees with you as a bad person, you don't have to engage in the argument, which means you never need to look at the numbers. You never need to work out whether things are affordable or not. Like the pragmatic way is if you want to help genuine asylum seekers coming to the UK, you need the UK with an economy that works. You need a system that works. You can't just simply do a Greens and open the border and then go, oh, no, it's OK, we'll just tax the billionaires. You probably won't. Also, their theory is just print money. Quantitative easing never causes problems, apparently, according to that politics. What they call a new economic theory. If that's the case, don't bother taxing the billionaires. It seems like you've made yourself some paperwork there. Just print some more money. But we actually need to have that pragmatic conversation. And let's be honest, she realises there is political capital in addressing this and looking tough. It's an issue that people have in the polls. We work out that people want to address the issue of immigration, not necessarily in some kind of far right, throw them all out type. No, we just want a nation needs to be able to control its border. It's the definition of a nation. And there will be a correct amount that is sustainable, a correct rate that is sustainable. And it's OK for us to want to talk about those numbers.
Most definitely. Now, if you look at the Tory policy platform, we're looking at £50 billion worth of cuts to public spending that will predominantly include welfare payments, scrapping the net zero targets, no council houses for people born overseas or benefits, and exiting the ECHR. Are you surprised by the extent to which Kemi Badenoch has shifted the Tory party to the right?
Well, not really, because where else was she going to go, I suppose? You're losing so much ground to the reform-style politics, because it's not like right now the hot area of politics is the undecided voter between the Tory and the Labour. If anything, Labour's been slightly pulled. It's got the Greens on one side, making it have to pay attention to its left flank. And the real battle that seems to be making a difference in the polls, because it's hardly like the Tories are troubling the polls massively. The popularity polls, whenever they come out, we're always talking about is Reform up one, is Labour up one. Oh, look at the battle. Well, if you're Kemi Badenoch, you've got to be paying attention to who you're losing ground to. And I think making it look like you are a bit tougher on some of these issues, it's kind of the only way to go, because it's people's genuine concerns. And even Andy Burnham is making sounds about addressing tax issues and addressing the security of the border down in Kent. So if even he's doing it, surely Kemi's got to do it too.
Well, I'm confused. There's a paradox here, Steve, because the political right in this country are fighting like rats in a sack, particularly Kemi and Nigel. He's called her, or the party, certainly through a spokesperson, has called her a thin-skinned failure, and she's called Nigel Farage woke. So there's no love lost between the two of them, but by shifting the party to the right and sounding very Reform UK, I feel like Kemi is rolling the pitch for some kind of deal.
You think so? I mean, look, normally you'd think so. Normally the right is so pragmatic. If you end up in a situation where the only way you can form a government for His Majesty is to come up with a coalition, normally they do it. That's kind of how you ended up with the very ill-fitting bedfellows of the Tories and Lib Dems back in the day. But there's been so much noise made, so much mudslinging, that I'd be surprised now. You've got the three main slices of the right, the Rupert Lowe, the Nigel Farage and the Kemi Badenoch. And it's almost like they've not been criticising each other's policies as much as they've been just name-calling, which would make it very difficult for them to actually get back together again.
Well, I think Restore UK have gone down the rabbit hole now, and I think it's all about the Tories and Reform. That's just my personal view. Yes, Rupert Lowe is a formidable and compelling figure, but his non-olive branch to Nigel Farage was a bit of a joke, I thought. I thought it was basically just political theatre, a bear trap, if you like. And, of course, they have focused so much on skin colour and ethno-nationalism to the extent now where we're having to get an answer from Rupert Lowe about whether King Charles is a white British man. So I'm not too focused on Restore UK, but I do think Tories and Reform is interesting, because I don't think, certainly if there was an election tomorrow, that Kemi or Nigel have the numbers for an overall majority in the House of Commons. And therefore, I think a deal has to happen. Do you not think all the mudslinging is political theatre? Do you not think it's trash talk?
It is, and for some reason our politics now tries to appeal to the emotional side of our brains rather than that cognitive thinking side, which is such a shame, because then we have to say the things that engage us with anger or other emotions rather than actual thoughts. And look at the corner we paint ourselves into, where now we end up having, it's name-calling, and it's absolutely pointless. Again, call the person's name-call the policies all you like, and that's what we want, because we know your stance on an issue then. But when you're just calling someone woke and you're calling someone thin-skinned, I'd rather not watch your little drama. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather you do your jobs, which is doing politics well. That's what I want to be paying my money for.
Well, let's take a listen to the leader of the opposition calling Reform UK woke.
So Reform are a woke party, and I know a lot of people don't understand. The word woke is used to mean many things. And a lot of people assume it's it's a left-wing thing. But when I talk about woke, I talk about people who, it's all grievance, it's victim narratives, people are doing this to us, oppressor narratives, this is the oppressor class, and on the left it's, you know, whites are the oppressors or men are the oppressors, with on the right it's, so this is the establishment of the oppressors, look at what they're doing to us. It's all moaning and whinging and not proper solutions.
Stephen Allen, am I living in a parallel universe? I've now got to ask you on the national radio and television airwaves in front of many thousands of people whether the king is a white British man.
The problem is, it's the
He's a
nature of
German, isn't
having...
he? Is Buckingham Palace social housing? And is he going to be
No,
evicted?
it is. According to
Please
Kemi.
don't throw me out. I need somewhere to live, for goodness sakes.
Yeah. I mean, look, is he white? He's quite often red. I don't know. Yeah.
He is a
Especially
bit.
his hands.
I mean, what is the ethnicity of those fat fingers? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's got to be part Cherokee, hasn't it? The issue here is that when you set up trying to find a definition means, of course, there will be a case study that you can throw. And that's what happened in the interview, isn't it? When Rupert Lowe was on the BBC, they found an example of someone who didn't fit Restore's definition of what white would mean. But even if you did find a way of squaring that circle, you could just go to one generation before it and find other people. It can't just simply be based on that. Do you know? And also, why, if you obsess about whether the king is truly white or not, you're fighting the wrong battle. No one is worried about that, are they? No one, as much as I pretended to be the kind of person who complains about Charles coming over here, no one's got that. There are genuine grievances and no one's worried about the king. So why are you trying to have a definition that causes that to be debate rather than actually sorting out some of this nation's problems?
Steve, I'm delighted to have you with me live on the show. Steve N. Allen, broadcaster and comedian. Lots more to come. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? This is Talk.
We've been on the beaches for 2 days running. Both days we've been hassled by the local French police. They've turned up armed to the teeth, looking very aggressive. We've had to arm ourselves, actually, with gas masks. They're checking our ID, wanting to know what we're doing here. They should show as much enthusiasm, I think, with the migrants. They seem to be waving them through and hassling us. But this morning, they asked for my ID. I told them to clear off. I said, you got it yesterday. You're not hassling me on the beach on my morning stroll.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lovely to have your company. Mark Dolan with you on Talk. I'm here for Ian Collins, and also I'm back, of course, on Weekend Breakfast tomorrow and Sunday. Then I am on my holidays for a couple of weeks. I will miss you hugely. But I'm not running the country, so I think I'm entitled to a break. Listen, let's get to your reactions in regard to our big conversations about the topics of the day. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? The Tories say no. Stuart has responded, "Hi, Mark, can we please start calling out these Tory grandees who are gaslighting us about this so-called Kemi bounce? Despite the media narrative, Reform are now stabilising in the polls, whilst the Tories have been on a downward trend. Likewise, the Tories are now getting single-digit numbers in council elections, particularly in the north of England. Just look at last night's results." Barbara in London. Good afternoon, Barbara. How are you? Lovely to have your company. Barbara says, "Mark, Kemi Badenoch has merely purloined another Reform policy with her statement on social housing eligibility. Likewise, leaving the ECHR and banning the burqa, other Reform policies that she has copied." Then she adds in her own tweets, and says that the Tories have costed them. Barbara, thank you for that. I don't think it's the official position of Reform to ban the burqa yet, but I do think they want to have that conversation. With me is Steve N. Allen, comedian and broadcaster. That's interesting, isn't it, Steve, what Barbara has to say? Scrapping net zero, ECHR, stop the boats, and most recently, no benefits for people born overseas or social housing. Does this demonstrate that Reform UK are winning the argument?
Well, it means they're asking the right questions. And I think what's interesting is the clip that you played there when we had Kemi attacking Reform, calling them woke isn't actually complaining about their policies, because actually the Tories are nicking the policies. So what the plan seems to be, and I think we even talked about this one weekend, about the biggest threat to Reform would be if the Tories copy them and then find other reasons to complain. The two threats to Reform would be if the migration problem stops happening, like if Labour solve it, or when you get near an election, Labour could just nick some of the ones that are a bit tasty. People might err on the side of the better the devil you know, and that would be a bit of a kryptonite for them. And so it seems to be moving already, because Kemi is not criticising the questions that have been raised or the solutions to those problems. What she's doing is copying the policy and then name-calling and saying, oh, look at these bunch complaining about being downtrodden by the establishment. I mean, she's kind of right. I think it was a weak move to complain too much about the establishment. Boast about your own. Instead of saying we are the target of all of this attack, just tell us how good you are and how good you will be. That's what we really want from politicians, rather than trying to play the victim role. So that was a weak move. And it's left Kemi with this move where she can actually copy them without having to have any of this lack of experience issue, which they're going to face.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. Meanwhile, Steve, police have maintained a heavy presence in Thetford after disorder centred on homes believed to be housing asylum seekers. Several arrests have been made following attacks on properties and clashes with officers. What do you make of the trouble we're seeing? Do you take the view that maybe illegal immigration is now starting to spark civil unrest, and will it get worse?
Well, look, I think we definitely have the right to protest, and if you don't like something, you should protest, and it should never tip over, because as soon as it does tip over, you're losing the argument. You're giving low-hanging fruit to the people who are going to criticise about your thuggish nature. I also think the way that that the government have been dealing with where people are housed has been setting a trap. Right? So no one likes it when it was hotels. No one likes it when it's some military barracks. But these HMOs, I always thought there was something about it that makes it hard to protest against them. Because if you're protesting against a massive building where people are being housed, fair enough. But if you're protesting on a street that looks like a normal house, you're going to end up looking like the bad guy. So I feel like somehow we were tricked by the government to making it look like a smaller protest is more of a heavy-handed move. This will happen because people are upset about this issue, and we need to be at least engaging in the conversation about it. No one's going to like anyone being housed near them, but all the ways that it's been done, either by a barracks, which then thoroughly overwhelms the number of people living in that area, or the hotels, and the government is saying, oh yeah, we're solving the problem of the hotels. Not by solving the problem, which is what people wanted, just by moving them into smaller houses that it's harder to protest near.
Well, most definitely. I actually wonder, in terms of the accommodation of illegal immigrants, we need to remind ourselves that the cost is £3 billion a year, which is an eye-watering sum. And most voters, including those on the left, want the boats to stop. It's a huge cost. It's quite divisive. There is a national security risk because we don't know who these people are. Some have suspected terror links. The issue we've got is not just the cost of accommodation, but where these folk go, as you've said. Now, the migrant hotels were very controversial because quite often a hotel is the beating heart of a town. And if it's lost to the community, then that comes at a price. But arguably, these HMOs, so a house near you on Acacia Avenue that accommodates 5 or 6 undocumented men, arguably worse than a migrant hotel.
Oh, definitely, in terms of security. And again, we can have this conversation without saying everyone who has arrived is a criminal. It's not the numbers we need to look at. They are not. Exactly. It's the fact that someone might be. So you're dealing with probability and possibility. And instead of there being one hotel, you've got these smaller houses, which is just more diffuse throughout the community, isn't it? And also, let's remember that the contracts for the hotels were long-term contracts. So the government's still paying the same money for the hotels. Like, it's not a saving until those contracts come to an end. What we've ended up doing is paying private security places to run hotels to detain migrants. and still not having anyone in it just because you need to do the headline, the optics of, look, we're solving the problem. Still paying the money because the contract's already there, and paying to set up either the barracks situation or the HMOs. I mean, it would be laughable if it weren't so annoyingly badly done.
Most definitely. Now, violence, intimidation and criminal damage are completely unacceptable, Steve. We can agree on that. My whole audience will agree on that too. But public anger around illegal immigration and the societal cost is understandable, isn't it? I'd give you an example of the leafy suburb of Crowborough in East Sussex, which is not a hotbed of far-right nationalism. But what's happened in that community is that the Army Training Centre that was used by young cadets for many years has been appropriated for the accommodation of 500 illegal immigrants, predominantly young men. And it's completely changed the way of life for the residents of Crowborough. So they're driving their kids to school, whereas previously the kids would walk to school or go on a bicycle. Women feel less confident walking home from the pub at night. This is a big problem. And in that context, public dissatisfaction and public anger is understandable.
I don't know why we can't just have greater security around these issues. Because, you know, if I were genuinely in a nation where my life was in threat, under threat, and I needed to be an asylum seeker, I needed to seek asylum somewhere, and it was offered to me, but it was, while we're processing your case, you will be in a place where you're detained. And I'd think to myself, would I rather be detained in this nice place or in this country where I actually am claiming my life is at risk? I'd be willing to take situation A. And therefore everyone could be happy because we could have greater security. And I don't know why people are saying, oh, no, you couldn't possibly lock people up. You could. If you've broken the law by illegally entering.
Because you know, you're not a rabid right-winger, are you? You're a bit of a secret progressive lefty, and you take the view that it makes sense that if someone has arrived in the country, yes, they're not going to be horsewhipped, but they will be detained and accommodated until their status is established. It shouldn't be controversial, but in some circles, particularly in relation to the establishment, most of the media, the courts, the political class, that is controversial.
Yeah, it's just about reframing, isn't it? You're right. I mean, I consider myself more of a homeless centre lefty. For like back in the day, it all made sense, but now it's all to do with identity politics. I'm not fully sure what anything means anymore. But for this argument, you just need to look at what you would be offering someone. You would be offering someone the chance to escape what they are calling a life under threat. So if the price you pay is temporarily staying within a place while you're being processed, I don't know. This is the way I judge it. I'd take that. So why do I not think it's okay for other people today? Why do we have to keep moving the argument to be freer and softer and freer all the time, to such an extent that you end up causing people risk and worry in the security of their nice Crowborough? That wouldn't have to be at risk if we just had a sensible way of looking at it.
Steve, what are your first impressions of Prime Minister Andy Burnham?
Mad for... Oh, you didn't mean an impression like that.
Did you know, by the way, I don't know if I should break the news because, and I'm so lucky as a journalist, I got the inside track on some of the big stories that people don't know. Andy Burnham is from the north. Yeah, he is actually.
No way.
I kid you not. And he really he loves it.
That was like when you dropped the Mark Dolan exclusive that Keir Starmer's father was a toolmaker. I remember that on your YouTube channel.
That's just a conspiracy theory. Don't go down that rabbit hole. That's up there with King Charles being Jamaican. But yeah, Andy Burnham. I mean, what are your impressions? He certainly does human better than Keir Starmer, doesn't he?
Yeah, and my other impression is King Charles. Wagwan. But no,
I think you might have just cancelled yourself there, Steve. My goodness.
Do you reckon?
What have they put in your tea today?
You're right. I was doing an impression of someone who's not white. That's a good point. Well made.
Yeah, big Steve. Steve's been on a journey. I can't lie.
I thought he was actually making the right sounds. I would rather have unfunded tax cuts than unfunded ID systems, digital ID. So at least it looked like they'd been through the list of what people said they didn't like, and they were starting to pay attention to them. Are any of these issues deliverable? No. But at least it looks like he got a sense of trying to not lose the debate. Starmer had a sense of like, we won the election, shut up, you don't pay attention anymore, we'll tell you what's right. No, that's not how we want a nation run. So I'd rather have someone paying attention to the worries that we have. Some of the worries seem to be about what favourite bar snack you'd eat. That was a bit weird on social media. But now it seems that the wheels are slightly coming off. Like, mate, Andy Burnham saying he's announcing some sort of an inquiry or review into the prison release. It should take all of 3 seconds, and I could do it on a piece of A5. Violent criminal, make it a no. check whatever rules you need to change to make it a no, they're not being released. Do that. And it really bothers me. This government is saying, oh, well, some of these people would be released under a loophole. You're in charge of the loophole. We voted for you to do this stuff, so change the loophole so the wrong ones aren't being released.
Do check out Steve N. Allen on YouTube, the man touched with genius and with a very attractive left flank. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Broadcaster and comedian Steve N. Allen. What do you think about this, folks? Has mass immigration created civil unrest? Is that understandable? Let me know your thoughts about that. And should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? Kemi Badenoch says no. What do you think? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Should foreign nationals be entitled to social housing and benefits? Kemi Badenoch says no. Let's get reaction from the deputy political editor of The Spectator magazine, James Heal. Good afternoon, James.
Afternoon, Mark.
I didn't see that one coming. Kemi Badenoch's efforts to shift her party to the right continue apace.
Yes, certainly. And I think that this does fit with the kind of wider debate that's been happening on the right. You may remember, I think there was, in the dying days of Rishi Sunak's government, a similar proposal mooted to deny foreign nationals this social housing. It's been kicked around in opposition. Reform have talked about it at various points, and now the Tories too. And they did put down some amendments to legislation in June about this. So I think that kind of fits with the direction being pushed by the likes of Neil O'Brien, who's running the policies, the party's policy process.
Now, to evict foreign nationals from social housing could release around 230,000 properties, which is a huge number. But is it practicable, James? Is it ever going to happen?
Well, I mean, it's going to be a very difficult uphill battle, I think. I mean, you've seen already a sort of massive backlash from the charity sector, people like the Shelter CEO giving quotes today, talking about divisive. I think it all depends really on kind of coming in on day one and ensuring the legal framework is correct and therefore setting out one's priorities. And this sort of argument about sort of how do we get the resources to pay for things is one that a lot of people on the right have been talking about, you know, immigrant versus native, those who have been here paid in the system a long time versus those who are much more newer arrival. And I think that that's going to be the central, the political economy for the next centre-right government of the country.
Yes, and it seems that the direction of travel is a more British-centric approach to governing. And that if you're born in this country, you should be at the front of the queue, not the back. And that seems to be an argument that the right are winning on and around which the right are united.
Certainly, yeah. And I think that it would fit with the James Orr's view about the politics of national preference. He's the guy who's the head of policy in Reform UK. And so it's different. Actually, it's quite funny when you get these policies, isn't it, Mark? Because you get, you know, Reform on the one hand saying, oh, you know, they're not the ones to do this, but it doesn't go far enough. And you get the Conservatives saying, well, they can't be trusted. I mean, my view is personally is that on things like this, there is less clear blue water between Reform UK and the Conservatives than before. And I think for some people who want to deal in both parties or want some kind of rapprochement and worried about another Labour government, this is the kind of thing that gives them cause for hope that there could be common ground.
Most definitely. I mean, if we look at some of Kemi's recent announcements, scrapping the net zero target, exiting the ECHR, stopping benefits for people born overseas, and now social housing to boot, this definitely makes some kind of working relationship between Reform and the Tories more possible.
Well, yeah, I mean, just yesterday I was interviewing Mark Francois, who is obviously a right-wing Conservative MP. I was talking about this, I said, look, Mark, you spent 2.5 years serving with a Liberal Democrat Deputy Prime Minister. Are you really telling me you couldn't serve in a government with Nigel Farage? And he sort of suggested that, Reform weren't serious, etc. But I think the thing is, Mark, we're going to have all these kind of conversations in the run-up to an election. And Kemi Badenoch ruled out a pact again this week. But after the election, we'll see. And then it really just becomes the question of politics that Lyndon Johnson set out. Learn to count, and it all depends on the numbers after an election.
I think you're so right. And it's interesting because Kemi's recent line of attack has been to call Reform UK woke, but it's interesting that her criticism is stylistic and tonal rather than policy related. I want to ask you about a really uncomfortable coalition, and it's not Tories and Reform in a future government, it's the Tory party itself. Do you think some of those backbenchers are struggling with Kemi Badenoch's approach and her policy announcements? Do you think she's taking the party with her?
I think she largely is. And the Tory party is willing to be led. And like anyone, they like a winner. They like someone who has legitimacy. So I do think she has space to move them in certain directions. And it's also about winning, isn't it? And she's seen at the moment as having high leadership ratings. They want to survive. They think this is the best bet. So right now, a lot of those critics on the backbenches are keeping stum. Interestingly, I think that there's less of a discussion around the European Convention on Human Rights currently, more the net zero announcement. And I do think the talk around sort of climate change has sparked some fears on the kind of the Tory centrist wing of the party, which is, hang on a sec, in sort of ditching net zero targets, are we not sort of potentially setting ourselves up for criticism over the environment? Obviously, we've gone through a heat wave. You've seen all those pictures of very yellow ground in London. That's what they're a bit worried about.
Of course, and the fires that have broken out across Europe as well. The optics of that are politically difficult if you're scrapping the net zero target, notwithstanding the merit of Kemi Badenoch's position. And why do figures like, or why did Grant Shapps, I think he was former Justice Secretary and other roles in government as well, why didn't he make the cuts when he sought the support of the party to propose himself as a prospective parliamentary candidate? Why was he rejected by his own party?
Well, my understanding is, there's been at least 10 ex-Conservative MPs who've been rejected. I wrote the story on this about Grant Shapps. I've heard various theories suggested to me about why he didn't pass that assessment. Obviously, there are some figures in the Conservative Party who are keen to suggest that it's because they've now strengthened the sort of route to becoming a candidate. And of course, I pointed out in this week's Spectator magazine that you now have to have a 2/3 vote in favour if you're an ex-Tory MP trying to come back for your old seat. So there is a tightening up of the criteria. I didn't get any answers when I was sort of asking about the reason for this, particularly from CCHQ. I would therefore make the point, though, that it is difficult in this week where we've talked about this local council candidate who is a former neo-Nazi to be sort of having the barrier at such a high level. That sets a threshold for everyone across the country in terms of council candidates, MPs. And I think that that's going to be a challenge to maintain a consistent policy on.
By shifting the Conservative Party to the right, are the Tories abandoning Middle England and centrist voters?
So there was a big report on this in 2024 by the think tank Onward. They suggested that even Liberal Democrat voters wanted a harder line on immigration than the Tories at that time. There are lots of Tories who discussed this. Should she maybe have moved to kind of a Lib Dem focus in 2024, as some was urging? Those around Kemi Badenoch tell me that they think she's right on this. They think that actually the Lib Dems want not dissimilar things. They want to see lower numbers of immigration. They want to see lower taxes. And actually, when the Tory party is at its best, it can win in the north of England and in the south too.
Illegal immigration is an economic, national security and humanitarian disaster, James. It's also dividing our communities, particularly with a proliferation of houses or homes of multiple occupancy. We've seen trouble in Thetford. Luckily, it wasn't as bad last night. The violence, the disruption is completely unacceptable, but the anger is perhaps understandable.
I think that it's quite interesting, isn't it, when we get these kind of outbreaks of social disturbance, rioting in the past. Often I think, the left would say things like in 1981 when there was the Brixton riots and the riots in Toxteth, well, you know, obviously rioting is wrong. We shouldn't condone mob rule or any criminality, but there are some underlying social issues. And I think that's what sensible people in the Labour Party, the Labour government, are telling me, which is that clearly there's no excuse for law breaking, but this should highlight a problem. And the interesting thing for me, Mark, is that do you remember when Andy Burnham was on the campaign trail in Makerfield and he was talking about, oh, the Home Office simply imposes this stuff, there's no consultation with local communities. Now he's in government, now he's in Whitehall, it's all changed, isn't it? And the Home Office is very much being backed up by Number 10. So I'm very sceptical whether these problems are going to be resolved anytime soon, because I think, frankly, no one wants them in their communities. And, you know, everyone's an open borders guy until it comes to home to the roost, doesn't it?
Most definitely. James, Rupert Lowe, the leader of Restore UK, refuses to say that the King, King Charles, is a white Briton. Have Restore UK lost the plot?
Well, I think that it's an unorthodox approach, and I certainly think that it's going to invite them to ridicule. So I think that on this one, if you're going after the King, maybe there's a few more people to and two more targets to focus on instead. So I couldn't speak ill of Charles III, and I maybe suggest that Rupert Lowe, having sworn an oath to him, might like to do the same.
What's your appraisal of where Restore fit into the British right?
So they're really interesting. I was having a discussion with someone in Reform today about, I think they're on the much more revolutionary end. You know, when you talk to people in Reform, they talk about wanting a restoration, going back to the kind of pre-1997 constitutional settlement. When you listen to people like Charlie Downs, who's meant to be, I think, Restore's deputy leader, he is much more radical, saying, I want a revolution. He's almost like Thomas Paine in a sort of sense. So I think very much on the radical revolutionary right, there's an ethno-nationalist element to some of their rhetoric and some of their members. I think that they have a very interesting playbook. They've clearly learned what Farage has done. I'm not convinced that they're going to necessarily end up there, because I think often you end up flirting with forces that you can't control. So I think they're going to be a warning of what's to come and a kind of feature here to stay, but I'm not sure Restore will be able to get anywhere near winning a government as some of them like to claim they will.
And Rupert Lowe's video, I mean, it wasn't an olive branch, was it? It was a twig.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. Maybe a leaf. I think that it was, you know, an interesting ploy. And I think it caused a lot of people in Reform to think about what the offer was, what the play was here. But I'm not sure we're going to see a full-on reunion of Nigel and Rupert anytime soon.
And obviously Restore can dent support on the part of Reform and maybe a touch the Tories as well. But it's hard to imagine them winning more than 1 or 2 seats at a general election, would you say? Does their ability to gain representation in the House of Commons go beyond Great Yarmouth?
I don't yet know where that would be. I think it depends what they want to be. Do they want to be kind of for Restore, or do they want to be anti-reform? They can be a spoiler. You know, we saw that in Makerfield. They can flood an area with lots of activists, go around distracting and bad-mouthing Reform, for instance. But I don't know anywhere in the country, Mark, where they're likely to win a seat other than Great Yarmouth.
And I think that many of the things that Rupert Lowe posts on X are admirable, and with which I agree, James. He's an articulate and compelling man. I've known him for years. He's very bright. He's an accomplished entrepreneur and a farmer, ex-football club chairman. So he's a guy of substance. And I think a lot of the people, most of the people that support Restore Britain are coming from a good place. But you just have to wonder, don't you, about the ethno-nationalism side of it, because notwithstanding the importance of national identity and Britishness, about which I'm passionate, the idea that we could ever cease to be a multi-ethnic society is for the birds. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and I think you have to remember 2 things, one of which is time is of the essence here. We're talking about a 5-year term. You can't turn back 50, 60, 70 years of, you know, post-Commonwealth immigration, for instance. And second of all, you've also got to think about just basic winning votes here. You know, most of the people listening to this will be thinking they're quite turned off by some of the rhetoric coming out. So I think that you got to, you know, be tactical and strategic about a lot of this stuff. They will argue differently, and they'll say things like, oh, we're here to save the country. Yes, you can make that case, but I think fundamentally political parties are very different from the kind of politics they're engaging in.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you, James. James Heal, Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator magazine. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? If you're on the right, is Kemi Badenoch starting to catch your eye? Exiting the ECHR, scrapping the net zero target, dealing with immigration in a unilateral way, including removing access to social housing and benefits from those overseas. What do you think? Or is it a one-person party? Is it a case of right leader, wrong MPs behind her? Let me know your thoughts. Your calls next, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
We've been on the beaches for 2 days running. Both days we've been hassled by the local French police. They've turned up armed to the teeth, looking very aggressive. We've had to arm ourselves actually with gas masks. They're checking our ID, wanting to know what we're doing here. They should show as much enthusiasm, I think, with the migrants. They seem to be waving them through and hassling us. But this morning, they asked for my ID. I told them to clear off. I said, you got it yesterday. You're not hassling me on the beach on my morning stroll.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I want to say I've really enjoyed your company this week. Ian Collins is back next week, but I really want to thank Yana and Faith, the brilliant Finlay, of course, the wonderful Luke, the two Lukes, and Amy pressing the buttons for all their help. I'm excited to say that next week it's actually going to be Dr. David Bull making a very welcome return for the next 2 weeks. Oh my goodness, you cannot have too much of a good thing. Big fan of David's. Let's get a voice note. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? Here is Bridget.
Good afternoon, Mark. Great show as always. It's Bridget listening to you from France. In answer to your question, absolutely not, Mark, should foreign nationals be given free social housing or benefits, zero for both. When I moved to London in 1987, Mark, I had to find private accommodation until my husband and I bought our first property under the wonderful 5% deposit scheme that Margaret Thatcher provided for first-time buyers. Now I'm here in France. You don't get free houses here, absolutely not. In fact, Mark, living here, we can't even vote unless we change our nationality, which obviously we would not do. We work, we pay our taxes here, but no, we don't get benefits and we don't expect benefits. And no, they should not be given. Anyway, great show. Bye for now.
Bridget, thank you for that, and thank you for your forthright remarks. And what about immigration? Is it creating civil unrest? Is it a powder keg waiting to explode? Here is Christine in Weymouth.
They want to create civil unrest. It's all part of the plan. So then they can militarize us and control us. That's what they're doing. And why suddenly are Conservatives so concerned about the British people when they were flooding the country with foreigners?
Christine not pulling her punches. Thank you for that, Christine. Nigel is in London. Hello, Nigel.
Well, good morning or good afternoon. It's nice to speak to the president of Weekend Radio, Mark Dolan. How are you?
Well, I'll take that title all day long. Nigel, you win the Caller of the Day award, let me tell you that, for your flattery. It'll get you very far. Now, Nigel, what do you think about this quite significant move by the Tories to evict foreign nationals from social housing? They say it will unlock 230,000 properties. But is it going to happen?
Well, Mark, I think that Kemi Badenoch needs to sit down in a rather large air-conditioned room with a cool drink, because I think quite clearly she hasn't remembered the European Court of Human Rights, which is going to stifle her proposal. That's the first thing, of course. And, of course, she's never going to be in power. And I said to your lady who took my telephone call,
Yana, yeah.
I don't believe that Nigel Farage is going to be in power, because he's got to find 320 MPs to suddenly overturn everything. And I think unless they bang their heads together and look each other in the eye and say, let's form a government next time round, they aren't going to do it. So I think it's a bit sort of sabre rattling by Kemi Badenoch. All of a sudden she's trying to copy things that other parties are suggesting. It's a bit like Nigel Farage with his military proposal to bring the Navy in. Well, we haven't got a Navy, have we? We couldn't muster a ship a few months ago to go sort of down towards the Middle East. So I think that whilst Kemi Badenoch might have some relatively interesting suggestions, they are just nonsense.
Brilliant. Well put. Nigel, thank you so much for that. We will speak soon, and thank you for the upgrade to President. Matt is in Cheshire. Good afternoon, Matt.
Hi, good afternoon, Mark. It was just about Kemi Badenoch. Obviously, she's very talented, very smart, very articulate. But I'm getting really, really tired of everybody forgetting persistently what Labour and the Conservatives have done to Britain in the last 30 years. If I were Reform, my entire election campaign would just be a reminder that every single social and economic problem in Britain today was caused by both those parties. So they're past masters at dragging people back in. And if I lied to you persistently for 14 years and then expected you to trust me and on the 15th year and you were happy to go for that, you'd pretty much have to be pretty stupid to think that, to allow that to happen.
Well, I think you're right, and I think that's the issue. It's the Tory brand. That's, people might admire Kemi. She's very articulate. I think she's a natural, instinctive Conservative. She's a fresh voice. But it's those MPs sat behind her and just the word Conservative.
Yeah, some of them are great. I liked a lot of the last cabinet, but you can't get away from the fact what they've done, Mark. It's literally like, we're going to flood Britain with 4 million people. Blair before him, 4 million people from Eastern Europe. And now, just because we say we've changed the face at the head of the ship, you're also gullible that you're going to be sucked back in. I know 85-year-old ladies who've had enough of Labour that have voted Labour all their lives. And I know people who voted Conservative all their lives, and they're looking for something new. So everybody needs to stop arguing, stop being so childish, get their heads together, and stop stealing each other's policies. It's just like, we could be watching sort of panel meetings of them all, Rupert Lowe, Kemi, and panel press conferences. All of them sat together, but it's just like, it's almost like the bickering is purposeful, just to sort of entertain us before the election comes.
Well, I know, and it only helps the left, which is the big issue, isn't it? Matthew, thank you for a brilliant call. We will speak soon. I think you made a lot of sense there. Anne is in Sussex. Hi, Anne. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits, do you think?
Well, tell me which countries they can go to, that we would like States, Australia, wherever, and suddenly get everything that they need. I'm not sure that I know of any.
Well,
Maybe,
I know, for example, Anne, that the British expats in the Costa del Sol in Spain don't get a bean.
No, of course not. No, the issue that it is incensing me. My granddaughter was evicted as soon as the government changed the rental details. Landlords are evicting people as fast as they could before it became legal. So a lot of people are now losing their homes. There's no guarantee that they will be housed. It's horrendous. And the thing that really has annoyed me for years, and it's got worse, of course, is, yes, we've all got to be sorry. We are to blame for what's happened in the world. We owe these people. And I think earlier the guy was saying, oh, you know, they're in a war-torn country. It isn't true. They're not all from war-torn countries. They're coming because they've been fed a lie that this is nirvana, and they come here, and which they are. They're looked after better than our poor homeless and our military people on our streets. So the other thing that's happened for years is that the people who are looking after the people from other countries, they get in touch with the local authorities. They've got these people who need housing, and they take precedence over people who've been waiting in those different authorities for a home legally for years. And it's really, our cities are imbalanced because our cities have been taken over by people from many other countries. We couldn't go across and suddenly have to take up everybody else's properties in other countries. We couldn't take our religion in. We have to abide. I know that there have been expats, you know, that have done things like that. But in the main, this country is now bankrupt. Who is going to stop it? Because it's going to cost us really expensively in the future in many ways. I had somebody today who said they can't get their toenails cut. And I thought, I wonder if asylum seekers can get podiatry services on the NHS.
Nothing would surprise me.
Oh,
Anne, I wish we had longer because it was a really interesting set of points that you had to make. Please call me again soon. Speaking from the heart there, and I think speaking on behalf of millions. Not sure about the podiatry. Can't think of the last time I had my foot nails done. Maybe it's time. Deal with the corns first. Lots more to get through. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
2 minutes past 2. Lovely to have your company. Mark Dolan in for Ian Collins. A big couple of hours to come. And here's our question. Should foreign nationals be entitled to social housing and benefits? Well, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, has argued no. Well, what's your view? 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. Or leave us a voice note. Meanwhile, police make arrests in Norfolk after disorder linked to accommodation for asylum seekers kicks off. We're going to ask why tensions over immigration are on the rise. And Rupert Lowe sparks controversy after declining to describe King Charles as a white Briton. What do you think? You can tell it's August, can't you? My number, once again, 0344 499 1000. As the saying goes, let's talk. And let's do just that in the company of Britain's favourite political double act, Neil and Christine Hamilton. Hello, folks.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
Very good to see you. Neil, are you surprised by the extent to which Kemi Badenoch is shifting her party to the right?
No, I'm not surprised at all. But, you know, she's trotting along behind Nigel Farage, shouting, wait for me, all the time, isn't she? Over a whole range of policies on immigration, net zero, now on housing, or you name it. You know, if Reform has got a policy, she wants it. But I don't think it'll work because it's very difficult for her to explain away why the Tories didn't do any of the things that she now seems to want in the 14 years that they were in office, and she was herself a minister in the Tory government right up until election day in 2024. So what's the reason for this Damascene conversion over a whole range of issues? The Tories allowed these problems to build up, so they say we caused them, so we know how to fix them. Well, that's not really a terribly convincing pitch, is it?
What do you make of this move by Kemi Badenoch? What's your appraisal of her leadership in recent months, Christine?
Oh, I think she's terrific. I'm a massive Kemi fan. I mean, we're not members of the Tory party, but had we been at the time the election was going on, I was firmly for Kemi, and this one was firmly for Jenrick. Well, have I been proved right or not? Yes, of course I have.
Well, she's got the charisma, hasn't she?
Got the charisma. I think she's amazing, and she's plain, you know, she's clear thinking, she's plain talking, says it like it is. She's obviously, you can see that she's completely trustworthy. You know, what she says is what she will do if she gets the power. So no, I'm a massive fan of Kemi. I think she's very beautiful too.
She's a stunning.
She is stunning.
She's a stunning woman. I mean, not as stunning as you, as Neil will quickly agree. But you know, no one's perfect. Christine, a lot of people feel. I've got viewers and listeners. They admire Kemi. They like the cut of her jib, but they feel that it's the right leader and the wrong party. How do you square that circle? The tainted Conservative brand.
Well, it's very difficult, but I mean, as Neil mentioned, she was part of the Tory government that did nothing for 14 years. But of course, so too were Suella Braverman, Robert Jenrick.
They resigned.
Yeah, but they were part of the government for a while, and I can't remember who the others are who've gone to Reform. So nobody's perfect.
Lee Anderson.
I think Lee Anderson, yes. Well, he was right at the beginning. I mean, he was very, very brave, I thought, Lee. When he jumped ship, you'll know when it was, I can't remember, X years ago. Yeah. It was, you know, it wasn't... Ago. 3, did you say? Yeah, I mean, it was a jump into the dark. And I thought he was very brave to do that. And I wondered if he would get re-elected. Well, I mean, he did. Lee Anderson, again, you see, what you see is what you get. You know that he's plain talking, straight talking. But now I think the Tory party are a drag on Kemi Badenoch. You've only got to look at the figures. Her popularity is always greater than theirs.
She's doing a very difficult job being leader of the opposition. It's a thankless task, actually. And many people have tried and failed over the years. I think she's, you know, one of the better leaders of the opposition we've had in the last 100 years. And she certainly is, I think, an attractive character. And I think she is doing her best. But I still think that the Tory brand is not sellable at the minute to the numbers of people that they need to to get on side in order to have a decent stab at winning a general election. And she's faced with this problem all the time, as you started off by asking me, why is she tacking to reform? The answer is that so many Tory voters have jumped ship to reform, and they're not going back, I think, because they feel that they've been utterly betrayed by successive Conservative governments under David Cameron, of course, to begin with, in alliance with the Liberals. And then we had the ghastly Theresa May, the worst Prime Minister of the century, apart from Keir Starmer. And I mean last century as well as this one. And then we have Rishi Sunak, spreadsheet, man-made flesh, or not much flesh at that, who was terribly boring, had no ideas, and just sat in his chair in number 10 whilst disaster engulfed his party. So she's had a very difficult task, to live that down, because she was part of it as well, never let us forget. And it's very difficult to convince people that the leopard has changed its spot. So regardless of how good she is at the dispatch box, and she is very good at the dispatch box, then so was William Hague against Tony Blair, a much more difficult target he had to fight against than Keir Starmer, certainly. And my guess is that Andy Burnham, too, I think is a kind of hologram figure. You can put your hand right through him. And that'll very quickly become apparent when finally he faces questions in the House of Commons or from the media, both of which so far he's studiously avoided.
I just wonder whether Kemi Badenoch's performance will be just good enough, Neil, to deprive Reform UK of an overall majority in the House of Commons at the next election.
Well, it may well be that Reform doesn't quite get enough to get a majority. I mean, we have a staggering feat if they get anywhere near a majority. Let's never forget, this is a party that didn't exist until a very few years ago. Still only got 5 or 6 members of Parliament at the moment.
Yeah.
Elect 5 in the last election. To go from that to electing 350 is an unprecedented feat, which would never have been achieved in British politics. It was achieved in Canadian politics, of course, where the Tory party there was reduced to 1 seat, and the Reform Party came in and formed the next government. That's what Nigel Farage is hoping will happen in this country. We got the first past the post electoral system, which produces unpredictable and random results when you've got more and more parties roughly on the same sort of percentage. We've got 3 parties around about 25%. We've got the Liberals on 11%, the Greens on 11 or 12%. Anything can happen in these circumstances. And you could get MPs elected on 25% of the vote in their constituencies. But I still think that Reform has a very good chance of getting a bare majority. But if they don't, then there will have to be some sort of a deal done afterwards. They're both saying under no circumstances will we do a deal now, but the reality is that if we get to the stage where Reform are 20 seats short, say, or 50 seats short of
careful.
Seats short.
Careful, Neil, we've all had a drink.
Winning an election, and the Tories are presumably on 150 or 200 or whatever it is. There will have to be some kind of a deal, probably a confidence and supply arrangement rather than a formal coalition. I think a formal coalition would not be a good thing, personally. So, but it remains to be seen in the next 2 or 3 years. Let's never forget, it's a gruesome thought that we might have another 3 years of this dreadful government. But again, anything can happen there. But I think Reform are doing very, very well, positioning themselves. They're developing their policies over the whole range. That's not an easy feat in itself, especially when you've only got a handful of MPs. But so they are establishing themselves in local government as well. That's vitally important. Next year's local elections will be another triumph for Reform, I would think, especially given the news today about houses of multiple occupation, which will be going up all over the country, exciting the same kind of animosity and resentment that we see on the TV news in Thetford and in Mansfield and elsewhere. So I think that the Labour government, of course, has no answer to any of these problems whatsoever, and Burnham certainly has no answer to anything. So I think both Tories and Reform have everything to hope for.
And Christine, Neil touched on it. We're going to see a proliferation of homes of multiple occupancy in which undocumented migrants are accommodated in communities coming to a town near you, just different neighbourhoods around the country. This is going to lead to more social unrest, isn't it?
It certainly is. And just before we skip over the last topic, can I just say three things? First of all, you forgot Liz Truss when you were listing disastrous Tory Prime Ministers.
She, of course, is the MP for theft. The MP for theft.
And also, I think that calling the Tories and Labour the uni party, I think has been incredibly successful because it brands them all together. They're hopeless, they're the past, we're the future. So I think that was a very good thing to do. But the third thing I just want to say quickly is that I think that Nigel Farage is in danger of becoming a liability to reform for reasons that don't need explaining. We all know that. So we'll see. But yes, I mean, I can hardly believe the news anymore when you read these figures about the number of certainly non-Brits and not even EU nationals who are now housed in social housing, etc. I mean, it's astonishing. We really have been asleep at the wheel to allow this to happen. And although it's very laudable what Kemi Badenoch and Reform have said, let's change it, get them out, put our people in, that will give rise to the enormous number of injunctions, and the human rights mob will be out in force. I mean, can you see it happening every single
It'll be,
eviction?
Christine, it will be like the ICE raids in America, won't it?
Yeah, it'll be an absolute battlefield. It'll be carnage. The idea that people are just going to say, oh, fine, we shouldn't be here, we'll go, it is a nonsense. So I think it's easy to say, but it's going to be damn difficult to do.
Isn't it ironic, though, Neil, because under this policy, what will happen is that EU nationals and other people from overseas will lose their state-subsidised housing. They'll have to find private accommodation. Well, that's the case for over 1 million Brits who are on a council house waiting list.
Yeah, 1.3 million, I gather.
Yeah,
we've got 4 million units of social housing in Britain. The waiting list to get into them is 1.3 million. You know, that shows the scale of the task. Burnham says he's going to build more and more council houses. Well, where's the money coming from? Do we have the construction capacity physically to do it? Is another question. I mean, the big problem is that we've screwed up the housing policy of this country. This was George Osborne's brilliant idea, of course, was to remove the tax incentives for people to build houses for rent. And now the Labour government, indeed, following on from the Tories' lead on this, the Renters' Rights Bill, which makes it much more difficult for landlords to make a profit out of their housing and gives tenants all sorts of rights where, you know, it would be great news for the legal profession because there'll be lots of court cases to prevent landlords getting their properties back when they want possession. So no investment is going to go into housing for rent. And that is exactly the opposite of what we need. We need to get the private sector building. And to do that, of course, we need to have the right tax regime and indeed renting laws to achieve. We had that from the 1980s. Margaret Thatcher's assured short-held tenancies revived a market which had been killed by rent controls for the previous 60 or 70 years. And it was a tremendous success. Why the Conservative Party chose to take the wrecking ball to that policy in the dying years of the last government, I have no idea. Completely irrational. Of course, Labour enthusiastically adopted it and made it worse under the likes of Angela Rayner. So, you know, we've got a migrant crisis, but we've also got a housing crisis. The housing crisis is partly caused by the migrant crisis, but not entirely. So there's a massive amount of work to be done to undo the damage of previous governments.
I mean, no private landlord in their right mind would put anything on the market nowadays. There seems to be an assumption by the government that we're all rackmans. You know, any private landlord is a sort of rackman. I mean, you'd have to be my sort of age to remember who I mean by rackman, but he was a pretty grim landlord and he behaved appallingly and people needed protection from him. But there are a huge number of private landlords who have maybe one property, maybe two. They're a little tiny nest egg, their pension fund.
Yeah.
And they're genuine people. They want to look after their tenants, and yet they're being wound up and bound up in red tape and this, that, and the other, and they think, hang on a minute, I'll never be able to get these people out if I need it for myself. So no wonder the market's drying up.
Most definitely. Before I let you go, Christine, I've been in this game long enough to know a story when I see one. Are you suggesting that Nigel Farage has gone from being the secret weapon of Reform UK to a liability?
I think there's a danger. I do seriously think there's a danger. We'll see what happens in Clacton. Is it next week? I think it's next week.
Yes, it is. It's in a week's time. It's in a week's time.
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm sure the people of Clacton absolutely adore him, so he'll be re-elected on a populist wave. But I think all these things about this 5 million and all that sort of thing, people, they don't like it. It smells fishy, and he hasn't come out and given an absolutely obviously correct explanation. So people say, yes, that's fine. That's okay. They gave you 5 million. We're very happy with that because it was for this, that, or the other. But it's all a bit murky, and I think that sort of murkiness sticks, frankly. And also this Farage Rupert Lowe ding dong. I mean, Farage started that. Let's be honest. He chucked Rupert Lowe out of Reform. He made all sorts of he put the police onto Rupert Lowe, for heaven's sake. I mean, these are classic Farage tactics. We've seen them before. He did similar things to Neil, not quite put the police onto him, but a lot of people have been pushed out of Reform because Nigel thought they were getting too big for their boots, too popular, too much of a threat. So Rupert Lowe was got rid of. So, he put Rupert Lowe out there. He's a very dangerous man if you're Nigel Farage.
Keep your friends closer and your, enemies closer. Neil, do you think that Nigel is now a problem for Reform?
I don't think he's any more of a problem than he ever has been, because he's a Marmite character. You either like him or loathe him, and there isn't much in between. But he needs to be more collegiate than he used to be when I was very closely working with him, if he's to make Reform succeed. I mean, they are doing vastly better than UKIP ever did, and they've got talented people like Richard Tice and Zia Youssef and others, and they've got members of Parliament, which UKIP never had except by defections. So it's a different ball game now, and it's a different kind of game, in fact, because before Brexit, UKIP was, to all intents and purposes, one-trick pony, although it did have a policy manifesto which covered the whole range of domestic policies as well. The only thing that it was ever really associated with was getting out of the EU and possibly immigration, because that was a big part of the Brexit argument. But so Reform now has to make a pitch over a much, much wider range of issues, which I think it is doing. I think Zia Youssef is doing an excellent job as the policy supremo for Reform, and I would like to see Nigel being rather more serious about things which he obviously thought wouldn't matter, like registration of members' interest. I don't personally think that any of these donations that he's received is corrupt or dishonest or have any ulterior motives. But the rules are pettifogging and pedantic, and you hand your enemies a weapon if you put yourself in the position where you can be criticised for rule breaking. And I think that he was rather too cavalier about that when he was elected, and he's now paying the price for it. So let's hope he learns by experience. And as regards Rupert Lowe, I think it's vitally important that Reform and Restore do have some kind of informal arrangement whereby they don't get in each other's way, and they don't therefore reduce the possibility of getting rid of this ghastly government and getting a decent government that will do what we want, which we haven't seen in this country since the Thatcher years, and restore Britain, because that's really what it's all about.
It most definitely is. Christine, last word. You get the last word because you are the last word, Christine.
No, I was just going to say, all we hear from Andy Burnham is that he wants to rewind to pre-Thatcher. Well, he was hardly alive pre-Thatcher. He doesn't remember how awful it was in the 70s.
But he's going to put hope into every heart.
Of course he is. And he's going to get some pork scratchings and do a couple of TikTok videos. That'll save the country.
Have you discovered where he is on holiday, by the way?
No, but I believe he's overseas.
Yeah, I can't believe you lot haven't discovered.
I thought as King of the North he'd be going to Blackpool.
Of course he should. Skegness would do it. Folks, I'm always on holiday when you guys join us. So much fun. Christine Hamilton, Neil Hamilton, Britain's favourite political double act. Lots more to come. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits in this country? Your call's next.
So the full list of candidates for the Clacton by-election: Joseph 77, the Independent; Adam Akatip, the Forward Party; Count Binface, the Count Binface Party; Nick the Incredible Flying Brick, the Official Monster Raving Loony Party; Tony Kane's an independent; Woke Trump Kazi is an independent; William Stewart James Clouston is the Social Democratic Party candidate; Rhys Cowan, an independent; Glenn Charles Cummings, an independent; Martin Davis, the Freedom Alliance Real People Real Alternative; Andy Earlam's an independent; Nigel Farage, the Reform UK Party; Atiye Fards, an independent; Lawrence Fox for the Reclaim Party; Tony Francis is an independent; Robin Green, an independent; Abby Hookway, an independent; Howling Lord Hope, the Official Monster Raving Loony Party; Stephen Richard Ingram is an independent, as is Amy Morris; Derek Norbert Morris is an independent; Michael Noel O'Keefe, an independent; Martin O'Brien, an independent; Nick Pellis, an independent; and Ketanar Kumar PPIA is the UK Voice Safer and Stronger UK Party; Daniel Pocock's an independent; James Ransley, the Consensus Party candidate; Jerry Smith is an independent; Kai Stevens for the British Democrats; John Stevens for rejoin the EU; Baron von Thunderclap for the Official Monster Raving Loony Party; Pamela Walford is an independent; Marcus White, Everyone is God Party; and Mark Wilkinson for the Independents.
We've been on the beaches for 2 days running. Both days we've been hassled by the local French police. They've turned up armed to the teeth, looking very aggressive. We've had to arm ourselves, actually, with gas masks. They're checking our ID, wanting to know what we're doing here. They should show as much enthusiasm, I think, with the migrants. They seem to be waving them through and hassling us. But this morning, they asked for my ID. I told them to clear off. I said, you got it yesterday. You're not hassling me on the beach on my morning stroll.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits when there are over 1 million Brits waiting for social housing? Ian is in Hartlepool, which is a very nice part of the world. Hello, Ian.
Hello, Mark.
I'm just imagining nice, warm, sunny day in Hartlepool. You got blue skies?
No, overcast.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to try and send some sunshine your way, Ian.
Yeah, I hope so. What I want to talk about today, I'm constantly switching my TV on and I'm watching all the smoke and mirrors coming from, not just Reform, but all the political parties about the immigrants, illegal immigrants coming into the country. And the conclusion I've come up with is there's nobody will be able to stop it, because unless the House of Lords and the backbenchers rule in the favour of doing something about the immigration, it's never going to happen. And I've just got the feeling that if it went to a vote, it would be kicked down the can would be kicked down the road for 2 years, by which time another political party would be in. and then you'd be back to square one. Now, I'm hoping somebody can correct me in me thinking, because I'm really hoping I'm wrong.
Ian, I think that you're following your gut instinct and your common sense, and you're looking at it and you're thinking that even if you get supposedly the right party with the right policies, there will be the judiciary, there will be the bureaucrats, the blob, the civil service, charities, NGOs, the media, working hard to make sure that that revolution doesn't happen, that the change the country needs will not happen. And the forces against a figure like Nigel Farage, if he gets into number 10, will be colossal.
How is he going to do anything? Because unless he gets rid of the House of Lords and then the backbenchers, how will he actually do anything about it at all?
Well, I know. I mean, there is one convention in parliamentary terms, Ian, which is that if the policy is in the manifesto, the House of Lords can only delay legislation. They can't block it. And I'm pretty sure that at the next election, Ian, Reform UK will have the longest, most detailed manifesto in history to avoid that outcome.
That didn't get, when they had the assisted dying bill, wasn't that can kicked down the road?
It was.
Kicked down the road and kicked out.
They killed it. They killed it with death by 1,000 cuts, basically.
But wouldn't that happen with the House of Lords, with the ECHR?
Well, it could do, but the assisted dying was not in Labour's manifesto. It was a private member's bill by one MP. So I would say that, yes, they can slow it down, but they can't block it at all. The issue is, can Reform UK get that majority in the House of Commons? It is mainly that's the $1 million question, Ian.
But it would take 2 years, wouldn't it, Mark? Because they can only do it for two. They can only keep the can down the road for 2 years, and then they've got to do something about it.
I mean, Ian, I spent half a day with Nigel Farage last month, and he was on great form, very relaxed, and very confident about things. But we spoke in the interview, it was for the Daily Express, and he said that, hand on heart, he probably needs 10 years and a big majority. This is going to take time.
By which time we won't have any space in this country. That's the worrying thing. You know, I'm already starting to recognise. I'm not recognising my own country.
Yeah.
You know, and it is a sad thing.
What sort of age, may I ask, are you, Ian?
I'm well into my 60s.
And how have you seen the country change in your lifetime, Ian?
Well, I mean, I've worked all over the world, and I've seen different things.
Yeah.
And I've seen this country in my lifetime. I'd love to go back to the 80s and the 70s, because you can't recognise this country no more. You know, in lots and lots of ways, people who fought for this country can't get housing. You know, and they're destitute on the streets, and that can't be right, Mark.
It isn't right, and I don't know why, Ian, that the term British First is so controversial politically. Surely that's a no-brainer for any British Prime Minister.
Which leads me to another point, Mark. I can't understand that. And there's got to be sort of an agenda. Somewhere down the line there has to be an agenda why migration is used as they're weaponising migration. And I might be wrong. No.
Well, I think, Ian, you're right to ask that question. People talk about this globalist agenda, which is the opposite of national interest. And the globalist agenda contains within it open borders, net zero, essentially the dismantling of Western liberal democracies. And it's antithesis of people power. And that's the issue. Now, I don't know what is at the root of this. I'm hoping it's incompetence rather than a plan. But either way, it's bad for the country. We're in trouble.
I once asked the question, why did Australia succeed with the migration and Poland? And the answer I come up with was their political systems are totally different to ours.
But you would think, wouldn't you, after Brexit, that we could get a handle on this, Ian?
You would, definitely. But that's why I voted for Brexit.
And Ian, I can hear the sadness in your voice, and it's the worst position to be in, with a sense of hopelessness about it. And I think many people feel now that even voting doesn't work. You know, people voted Tory in 2019 to get Brexit done and to tackle immigration. That didn't work. There's a real feeling of hopelessness out there.
You know something, Mark? My son once said to me when he was 13 years old, and he once said, if voting meant anything, it would be illegal.
It's a great line. Ian, you're a top man. Stay positive, because I do think change is coming, Ian, because I think the country is crying out for it, and I think that there is a silent majority out there that understands the situation we're in, understands that it's 5 to midnight, and understands that change must happen. Ian, lovely to chat to you. Have a good afternoon. I hope the sunshine does come to Hartlepool eventually. Apparently there's another heat wave coming. I'll take that. It's August after all. Lots more to come. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we've seen trouble in the last few days in Thetford, and it's in regard to homes of multiple occupancy. Clearly, any violence is completely unacceptable, but is public anger around the accommodation of illegal immigrants in our communities understandable? Let's get the views of Peter Blexley, former Met detective and, of course, Talk legend. Hello, Peter.
Good afternoon.
You and I will be the first to condemn any violence, any law-breaking, any intimidation, but public anger around HMOs is only going to grow.
Public anger around the whole immigration issue is growing and growing and growing, and it will boil over from time to time. I want to reiterate what you've said. Anybody who bites a police officer, throws a brick at a police officer, thinks that throwing eggs at properties is some kind of way forward is an absolute idiot. Do not do it. I have in my hand the weapon with which the whole immigration issue will be sorted one day, and that is a sharpened pencil, which I will be taking into the ballot box at the next general election. And the party that has proven, and I mean proven, by getting the right legal advice, by building a legal team around them that will fight and fight and fight for what is right, will invariably get my vote when it comes to immigration. And I sincerely think that will be the defining issue of the next general election. And just to pick up on what Ian said, if I may, your previous wonderful contributor from Hartlepool. Yesterday afternoon, my wife and I were in our local cash and carry, which is in Thurrock in Essex. And I kid you not, if we had plucked somebody from just about any nation on the planet, covered up the signage and covered their ears, then I would have challenged them by saying, what country do you think you are in? And I very much doubt the first thing they would have said would have been England.
Yes, I think that's telling. And Peter, the issue we've got is there's been political pressure to empty the migrant hotels. That's fine, but all we've had is the shifting of deck chairs on the Titanic. It's been my view for a long time that the homes of multiple occupancy are arguably even worse than migrant hotels.
Because they're in people's streets. They are their neighbours. And of course, we know through the litany of appalling crimes committed by some of these people that have entered the country illegally, be that murder, countless rapes, other sexual assault, and much more. People are deeply and rightfully and understandably concerned about this issue. And I count myself very much in that number. Something drastic needs to be done. But of course, we have yet another Prime Minister, Mr. Burnham, whose ambition clearly outstrips his ability. He has ducked and dived this issue as though he were bobbing and weaving in a ring during a boxing fight, because ideologically, the left do not feel like the majority of people, I believe, in this country do, that they are deeply concerned. Ian was right when he said he does not recognise his country anymore. That's exactly what I felt when I was in the cash and carry yesterday afternoon, and when I go to many other places in London and other parts of the UK. It will be the defining issue. The party that has the proven legal team that have got very sharp teeth, very sharp pencils, and will fight and fight and fight for what is right to protect the culture, the values, the history, the identity of Britain. The identity of Britain is being erased from how so many millions of us once knew it.
And Ian in Hartlepool, Peter, has a feeling of hopelessness. He's got no faith in our democracy or our political system, and he's not convinced that change will ever come. Is he right to think that?
For as long as we have a Labour government, he is absolutely right to think that way. It will not be a Labour government that grasps this issue, that deports in their hundreds of thousands those who should not be here, that stops people claiming benefits and being given a place at the head of the queue for social housing. It will not be a Labour government that readdresses the imbalance, the prejudice, the unfairness of repeated DEI policies and the such like. It will not be a Labour government that stops police chiefs in their tracks and say, abandon these race action plans because they are discriminatory, they are unfair, they are prejudicial against people who are, guess what? Yes, white.
And what do you make of this latest announcement, Peter, from the Conservatives, that foreign nationals will no longer have access to social housing and benefits, and in fact, they will be evicted? Is that realistic? Can you ever see that happening if the Tories won power?
Sounds great, but how well has it been thought out? Have the sharpest legal minds in the country been asked about this? Are we hearing from King's Counsel, experienced people who've battled in the High Courts, who've battled in tribunals, who are not afraid of a combative approach to this? Have those top legal minds been tested? If they have, if they've been asked, if they've come up with their policies, let's hear those voices, because then we might have a bit of a clue who would be an Attorney General, for example, should the Tories or any other party then get elected into power.
Most definitely. I mean, this can be summed up in two words, can't it? And we've seen this in the United States after the result in 2024. And the two words, Peter, are political will.
Indeed it is. But the public deserve more than policy announcements that are not fully backed up. The public absolutely deserve to hear, and I make no apology for mentioning it again, but from hearing from those legal brains, for it will be them that fight it in the High Courts. It will be them who fight it in tribunals. It might be them that have to end up fighting it in the European Court of Human Rights, which, of course, we should leave along with the European Convention. There are so many complex legal battles to be had. The party that shows me it has the right, powerful legal minds on board will be the one for whom I pick up this sharpened pencil and put my X in the box.
Well, Peter, if anyone has got lead in their pencil, it is you. Thank you for a brilliant contribution to the show. We'll catch up soon. One of my absolute favourite men on the planet, Peter Bleksley. Common sense, former Met Police detective, a very wise man. Currently on tour, by the way. What a popular man he is, and understandably so. Diana is in London. Good afternoon, Diana.
Good afternoon. What I want to say is that this is just about my son, but obviously it does involve other people, about social housing. So he can't live with me because I live on the first and second floor of the Victorian house. He's disabled. He had a stroke. And they put my son into a hospital. And he's been there for 3.5 years. It's a dank, dark room, infested with cockroaches. It's horrible. I've just seen my son get really depressed, and there's nothing we can do about it because basically they're saying they've got absolutely no social housing to offer him whatsoever. And there are other people within that hostel as well. And I can't wait for them, actually, and I hope it does happen, that they remove all these foreign nationals that are getting social housing. But I also know she's a friend of mine, but I can't mention her name. She works at the local authority in housing.
Yeah.
And she actually said they do offer as well people that are being granted asylum. She said are offered, this accommodation. They're given priority, particularly if they've got, a lot of children, which she said a lot of them do. And obviously that doesn't affect my son so much, but it just sickens me to think that accommodation is good enough for my son, who's British, and he's living in the most appalling conditions, but it's not good enough for an asylum seeker. It's not good enough for anybody else. But somehow they think that's okay. Honestly, if I could send you a picture of his room, it's heartbreaking. It really is. Little wonder he's depressed.
Well, the hostel sounds unsafe. It sounds below standard. It sounds inappropriate for a young man that's had a stroke and is disabled. Yeah. And if I think about a hostel accommodation, I'm thinking of an overnight solution, that someone was sleeping rough. Not a year.
3.5 years.
3.5 years. I mean, this is wild.
Yeah, 3.5 years. He's been in this really dank, awful room.
I mean, it can't be doing his health any favours, is it?
No, and it sent him into this deep depression as well. He's really depressed. Nothing in there really works. The bed is awful. The mattress is awful. The fridge doesn't work. It's not really suitable. He struggles to get in and out of the shower because it's not a shower for somebody with a disability. He's fallen in it before. It's just totally inadequate. But they say they have nothing at all.
And that bit is true, isn't it?
Well, it is true because everybody that's coming into this country is getting prioritised over British people. And this is probably across the country, and it's heartbreaking to think that somebody was born here, worked here, that we've paid our taxes, and yet we're put on the bottom of the pile.
And Diana, you just wonder, don't you? You work hard, you pay your taxes. I don't have a viewer and listener to this show that has a problem with paying taxes to support people who need state support, who can't work like your son, who needs subsidised accommodation. No one begrudges your son that. What they begrudge is people coming from overseas and getting social housing and benefits. What they begrudge is young people who are being paid to stay at home because they're depressed or they've got ADHD and are 100 quid better off per week than young people that do work. That's what people have a problem with.
Yes, absolutely. That's it in a nutshell. But it's just, I'm getting to the point where it's really making me, I was upset to begin with. Now I'm just getting angry.
Yeah.
I'm just to understand where I'm coming from, because I feel helpless to help him.
Yeah. It's, Diana, I mean, I would say it's not fair and it's not right. I think how things are set up in the country now is not right. I got a cab last night and we've got a taxi driver and he's doing 60, 70 hours a week and he said, mate, I am struggling.
Yeah.
And people are just struggling. And, your boy, what's his name?
Jamie.
Jamie. God bless him. What age is Jamie?
Jamie is 44 now.
Right.
He had the stroke when he was 38. But my husband, can I just quickly say,
yeah, of course you can.
He's 65. He works as a site manager. He's got arthritis in his hip. He's had an operation on his hand because he's got arthritis. Now he needs an operation on his left hand, and he still goes to work every single day.
Yeah.
Every day.
And he'd be entitled not to.
Absolutely, but he does. He wouldn't do that. He just says, I'll keep going for as long as I can.
But what's happened is we've got less people like your husband these days.
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately we do. There's people that, I mean, like you said, anybody that needs PIP, anybody that needs these benefits.
No problem.
Nobody has a problem with that. But there are far too many that are gaming the system. And I think we all know that because all of us know at least one person that's doing it.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Diana, your son, Jamie, is in what I would describe as emergency overnight accommodation. That's how I would describe it, based upon, you know, the picture you've painted of this hostel. It should be a temporary stopgap, not 3.5 years.
Yeah, but no, they've already said to him that it's unlikely he'll be offered anything. So he's there for the foreseeable future, until perhaps we start emptying some of these social housing homes and flats that so many of these foreign nationals are entitled to at present, and they shouldn't be.
And of course, I'm imagining, Diana, that you're not going to demonise these foreign nationals. It's just a case of, if you're from overseas, no problem. But what we're not going to do is subsidise your accommodation and give you a wage, because that wouldn't happen in any other country. Exactly.
No, I don't want to demonise anybody. You know, my mother was Polish. She came here just after the war. I don't want to demonise anybody, but she didn't get any benefits. They were put in the camp in Dorset, and that was it. And my dad was in the British Army at the time, and my sister was born in the camp. They were given no money, nothing. When they left, they were given 10 shillings, and they then had to report to the police station if they moved around. And they rented privately one room, and my dad found work, and mother found a job too, and they worked. They didn't expect anything from the state. Lord knows there are lots of British people after the war that had nothing themselves.
No. Well, Diana, I know that I speak on behalf of my viewers and listeners that our heart goes out to you. Not just Jamie himself, who should not be in emergency makeshift accommodation for 3.5 years, which is highly inappropriate for his disability and his physical condition. Your amazing husband, who in his 60s is still working, could have his feet up, has arthritis, but still puts a shift in. And you, Diana, I can hear the emotion in your voice, and it must be really hard for you every day when you wake up and your first thought is Jamie and the setup that he's got.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's one of the lucky ones, because at least Jamie can, you know, come home, or I can take Jamie out and do things with him. There's lots of these people that have nobody at all.
No, they don't. Diana, I'm very glad you called. I mean, it's what this place is all about. I wish there was an answer. I wish there was a solution. But I think what you're saying is actually, if you see policies that redress the balance and make things fairer and make things right, then you'll be less angry. And I tend to agree with you. I don't really know how you follow that. This is Talk.
We've been on the beaches for 2 days running. Both days we've been hassled by the local French police. They've turned up armed to the teeth, looking very aggressive. We've had to arm ourselves, actually, with gas masks. They're checking our ID, wanting to know what we're doing here. They should show as much enthusiasm, I think, with the migrants. They seem to be waving them through and hassling us. But this morning, they asked for my ID. I told them to clear off. I said, you got it yesterday. You're not hassling me on the beach on my morning stroll.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Removing benefits and social housing to overseas nationals, exiting the ECHR, scrapping the net zero deadline, and reducing welfare by £50 billion. These are all policies that have been announced by Kemi Badenoch. She's clearly shifting the Conservative Party to the political right, but is anyone buying it? And will it work? Michael is in England's second city of Birmingham. Hello, Michael.
Hiya, how you doing, Mark?
I'm very well, top of the afternoon. How are things in Brum?
Same old, same old. But literally...
Birmingham's quite nice these days, don't you think?
Yeah, that might be Professor Arday's take on it. Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, it's had a good... I do like the station is very nice.
Yeah,
and the
and
city centre's
Aussie,
nice.
The Bull's always a good attraction. But
yeah.
What I was going to say is I've just had an amazing experience on a AI platform, which I won't mention which one it was.
Okay.
I asked it to generate an image of Professor Arday in the style of Pinocchio, and it refused.
This is the guy that was promoted to professorship by Cambridge University, even though his CV was full of more lies than Rachel Reeves, right?
Exactly, yes. So I asked the AI to generate an image of Pinocchio, and it refused.
Well, that was woke AI. Woke AI. Doesn't fit the narrative, Michael. You've been censored.
Wait a minute. I asked it to generate... So I put in the same request and swapped it for Nigel Farage, and it generated an image.
Mate, I mean, that is... You should put that online. Get that on X, because I think that Elon Musk will retweet that if he sees it. It's a problem. AI... is definitely politically correct, is definitely censorious, and it's definitely got an opinion.
Yeah, well, I managed to get it to generate an apology to Nigel Farage on behalf of itself, which I'll post to him. But anyway, what I want to talk about really...
It's a great story, though. I know someone that did a similar experiment where they said, is it good to be proud to be black? And it said yes. And then it said, is it good to be proud to be white? And it said no.
Yeah.
So we've been there before.
Going down that a little bit with the Kemi Badenoch thing, you asked at the very top of the show, is there a renaissance with her? And I like Kemi Badenoch a lot, and I think she's got a lot of qualities to make her a fine leader. But a mass slip yesterday, I read a quote where she said reform was all about grievance. Now, given that the fact most reform voters are white British like me, I know some aren't, but most are, let's face it, they are.
Yeah.
Right? How is it when we complain about something, it's a grievance? But when BLM riot and loot, that's addressing injustice and equality. DEI addresses injustice and equality. But when we complain about something which is happening before our very eyes in the very city in which I sit often, it's just grievance. And she lost my sympathy based on that, because now I doubt what her thinking actually is.
Michael, that is the mic drop of the day. And I had not thought about it in that context. And I think you're absolutely right, because the way that she attacked Reform was to actually attack its supporters, the people that are fed up with what's happening in the country. I wonder whether this is, in a sense, her Hillary Clinton moment, when Hillary described Trump supporters as a basket of deplorables. It's actually got that flavour about it, hasn't it?
It's more than that. To me, she's a person I very much admire. I really do. And I think she's articulate and brilliant. But that showed that, frankly, to me now, if she was standing here now, I would say it sounds like all that was a front, and you're really on the side of the Labour Party with all of this.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, to say that you're concerned about illegal immigration, which is a national security, economic, societal and humanitarian disaster, to call that grievance is a real insult, and it's what they call gaslighting, actually.
Yeah, look, it's nearly as mad as having a Home Secretary who says they're going to tackle the gangs and smash illegal immigration, who's got photos on their profile of them handing out food parcels to illegal immigrants in the Mediterranean. It's bonkers. It's crazy. But it shows where we are.
So what do you think with Kemi, with these policies which are more right-wing, do you think that her heart's not in it? Is it fake? Is she lying? Is she being dishonest? Is she spinning a yarn? What's the story?
After that little soundbite or whatever it was, but they can be so telling, you know, when you're angry or when you're off guard, you know, things can slip. I think everything you've said, I've got no faith in her at all. No.
Wow. Michael, thank you for that angle. I really hadn't gone there in my tiny little head, but you did for me, and I think we'll develop that. Thank you very much for your call, and have a lovely afternoon in Birmingham. There you go. Michael, disappointed that Kemi Badenoch said that Reform UK are the party of grievance, because that, of course, is a slur on its supporters who are unhappy with open borders and an economy in the red. It's not exactly grievance, is it? They're right. Lots more to come. Big hour to come. Keep it talk.
Across the UK. On on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good afternoon. It is 2 minutes past 3. You are listening to Talk, the home of common sense. Mark Dolan in for the brilliant Ian Collins. And don't forget, I'm back on breakfast tomorrow and Sunday. Then I've got a couple of weeks off. David Bull is in Ian's seat for the next 2 weeks. It's a cast of thousands here, isn't it? Should foreign nationals be entitled to benefits and social housing? Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, says no, arguing British families should come first. Is she right? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222 or leave us a voice note. Police make arrests in Norfolk after disorder linked to accommodation for asylum seekers. We'll ask why tensions over immigration are continuing to rise. Violence and disorder are completely wrong, but is the anger understandable? And is the accommodation of illegal immigrants, undocumented, predominantly young men, in homes of occupancy rather than asylum hotels, even worse? Let me know your thoughts on that. And Rupert Lowe sparks controversy after declining to describe King Charles as a white Briton. It's definitely August, isn't it? So much to get through. But should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? Let me know your thoughts on that. Is it unfair to withdraw that support to people from overseas who work in the NHS, who contribute to the economy? Or should it be Brits first? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Yana is taking your calls. Finley's the boss. Amy is our lead engineer. And the excellent Luke, in a very ambiguously coloured shirt, is directing our TV output. We don't know if it's grey or blue, but he shines in it. So if you want to see the show, head over to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. So much to get through. Let's kick off our conversation in the company of a very old friend of mine, David J. Bannerman, former Conservative MEP, I should say, chairman of the Freedom Association, and now Reform UK supporter. Hello, David.
Hi, Mark. How are you doing? Nice to see you.
Wonderful to see you again after quite a long time. So, David, before we kick off and discuss Kemi Badenoch and this latest development in regard to social housing for people from overseas, you have defected to Reform UK and you've written about it in a fascinating piece in the Daily Express newspaper. Why did you make the move?
Well, to be honest, Mark, I just think the country's in such a mess now that we need a revolution, a revolutionary government, as I put it. And I think only Nigel Farage actually offers that. I've known him for 22 years. People remain friends, a bit of movement here and there. But I've got huge confidence in him, and I love the policy platform that's coming together. I think, that will be transformational for the country. And I felt I need to support him and need to support the policy agenda.
Was Kemi Badenoch's shift to the right with the axing of the ECHR, the axing of the net zero target, with these policies now in regard to people from overseas, were those policies not enough to keep you on board?
I just don't think she'll be able to deliver them. I mean, the Conservative Party now is more to the left, really. It's dominated by left of centre. And my fear is, she talks well. I welcome those, and that's going the right direction. But I think the Conservative problem is it hasn't delivered. And by the way, the other thing that really annoyed me, and she's done it again, is Kemi has insulted local councillors who worked damn hard. And we lost quite a few Conservative councillors who were friends of last election in Norfolk and, of course, the east of England. And to insult them as, it's all about bins or whatever it was. And last time she said it was a free hit. Not just after the local elections. So I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with Kemi. She seems to be acting bizarrely.
Well, I tend to agree with you, certainly in relation to supporting the candidature of a former neo-Nazi as a local Tory councillor. Seemed like a strange hill to die on.
I was stunned by that. I think, would Maggie Thatcher have actually sort of pause for any length of time before saying no. I mean, any political skill would say, don't do it. I mean, you know, True Crime Gazette produces, this Josh character produces, is brilliantly done, whatever. But Kemi is always the heroine in it, by the way. So I just found it sent all the wrong messages. And the fact that Jewish groups would not meet Kemi, I think, was very serious. I think it's kind of destabilized her because it was such an error.
I think it screams own goal, doesn't it? David, do you think the leader of the party that you now support, Nigel Farage, will be able to shake off the negative headlines around that notorious donation of £5 million from a crypto billionaire?
Well, I think actually some of it is because people that understand crypto, and it sounds odd, you know, but it's actually very mainstream now, crypto, in the world. Central banks are looking at it and using it. I just think it's establishment piling on to Nigel. I think he made the right decision to have a by-election because that's what they wanted. Just with Boris, the same plan, force him through the standards committee, you know, fix that, the kangaroo court as it was called at the time, force a by-election. Well, he's gone first, and I've been up there to help him in Clacton. And the support is incredible, actually, from people there. They can see through these games at the established thing.
Do the Conservatives and Reform UK cancel each other out, though, David? Because notwithstanding your misgivings about some of Kemi Badenoch's remarks, she's proving to be a popular leader. She's steadied the ship for the Conservatives. And at the time of the next election, whether it's this year, next year or the year after, millions of people will vote Conservative.
Well, it's interesting. You know, she's ruled out the coalition with Reform, which I think is ultimate folly. I mean, you know, by all means, you know, say you'd rather not and you know, push the Conservative message. But
fudge it, yeah. Fudge it's the way to do it, right?
Well, you know, that's a valid policy. But to rule it out in the face of the polling, which suggests she'll go backwards. I mean, by the way, ever since Burnham came on board, the Tories have gone back 2%, 3%. They're slipping in the polls again. I think that is causing real trouble. I just don't think it's very practical. I mean, we've got to put the best interests of the countries first. Many good friends I respect in the Conservative Party. I will not attack them personally. I will point out, you know, problems and things they've done. But we've got to come together. I mean, the polls are saying coalition is likely, and it really is about who's top dog in that. I hope it's Reform now, and we have a revolutionary agenda to back, and I hope the Conservatives can do that. You know, to rule that out and behave like this is such bad politics.
It doesn't really make sense, does it, to be so incredibly sort of not leaving any options open under the circumstances. The political right, there's a worry, isn't there? Because if there's a hung parliament at the next election, no problem, a deal can be done. But by that time, it could be too late.
Well, I mean, you've got coalitions, as an MEP, as you know, and coalitions are quite common. We've just seen in Germany the grand coalition of basically their Labour and their Conservative Party, CDU and the SPD, Labour, were working together. And I fear that I hope Kemi isn't thinking of backing Labour and having the old party coalition. It's a possibility. It's what's happened in Germany, though it's just collapsed. I hope that's not the case, and that the sensible voice in the Conservative Party actually don't rule out working with Reform. You know, there are seats that Reform doesn't play in. There are many seats that Conservatives don't play in. Reform does. So I don't know. I mean, we don't want to be talking about deals now and all of that, but I think a bit of sort of humility and not attacking each other would go down well.
No. Now, David, anti-migrant protesters were arrested after a mob attacked homes they believed were housing asylum seekers. Clearly, any violence and disorder is completely unacceptable, but anger around how we accommodate illegal immigrants is perhaps understandable.
Yes, I mean, it's Norfolk. It's down the road to me. I'm in Norwich, Thetford, and it's very concerning. I mean, people are getting really fed up with, all these people turning up off the boats, getting free benefits, and getting housing, social housing, and that's what triggered this. And as you rightly say, I do not condone attacking policemen or biting a policeman, policewoman.
Yeah,
that's not acceptable. But the underlying anger is very, very real. They want to have a big camp down the road with more asylum seekers, or so-called asylum seekers. Many of these people are just economic migrants, want a better life. You can understand at one level, but this is just completely out of hand now, and it's very, very serious.
It most definitely is. David, wonderful to see you after all this time. Thank you so much for joining us. David Bannerman is a former Conservative MEP, chairman of the Freedom Association and now Reform UK supporter. Lots more to come. Should foreign nationals have access to social housing and benefits? This is Talk.
This wouldn't be a story without the plagiarism allegations. That's what's the start.
Would it be a story if he was white?
It wouldn't be a story if he was white at all, because he wouldn't have had there's no scrutiny that would have been put on him.
Well, he wouldn't have become famous, would he? He wouldn't have been a guest editor on the Day programme, the BBC, because he wasn't the youngest white professor at Cambridge.
He was the guest editor because he was talented. He could be talented. I've done things in the media because I'm good at things, not because I'm black. Like, we don't just get things because we're black, we get things because we're good.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk, and it's very interesting, isn't it? Because one of the big stories of the week has been a divided right. You've got Kemi Badenoch definitely shifting in a reform direction in terms of her policies. And then you've got Rupert Lowe reaching out to Nigel Farage with an olive branch, or was it a bear trap? But what do we make of the Restore Britain concept, the platform, the idea of it? Is it based on ethno-nationalism and skin colour, or is it just about Britishness? Andrew is in Halifax. Hello, Andrew.
Well, I hope it is about Britishness rather than skin colour. And I speak as someone who is very, very sad at the mass amount of immigration we've had over the last 25 years. And I think that this country has changed for the worse because of it. But I would caution anybody from Restore listening to this that thinks that Britishness should be defined purely on ethnic lines. And the reason I say that is because you may remember a guy called Johnson Behari. He was a lad from the West Indies, I think, who won the Victoria Cross.
Right.
Yeah.
I know, forgive me, I don't remember the name, but was he a British person of colour?
Yeah, absolutely right. And somebody who's fought for the country and who's proud to be British. And then you look at something like that concert that took place in West Belfast last night, the Kneecap concert, where there were most disgusting pro-IRA, anti-British slogans sung by people who are as white or whiter than I am, and who were born, whether they like it or not, in the United Kingdom. Now, why should somebody be considered for the honour of being called British, or be entitled to the benefits that this country brings? Why should they be prioritised just because they're white over somebody who's deeply proud to be British and is non-white?
Correct. And that's the point. What I'm always saying, Andrew, is that the great challenge for this country is to have a successful multi-ethnic society based around British values, British traditions, the English language and the rule of law. That really has got to be the mantra, because the idea that you're going to turn back time and change the ethnic makeup of the country is for the birds.
It is. I mean, that's not to say that there shouldn't be thousands of people deported who have no damn right to be here and have no intentions of integrating. I would be the one assisting them at the dock or onto the plane.
For sure.
But you're right. I mean, you've only got to look at some of the things that have occurred in this country over the last 10 years. I was also a campaigner in the Scottish referendum. I campaigned for the Union, and despite what members of the SNP say, I saw firsthand this sort of visceral anti-Englishness, anti-Britishness that came from some sections of the Scottish nationalist movement.
Really toxic, really intimidating.
Absolutely. There are plenty of white people in this country that hate Britain. And I think that should be remembered before anything else.
Well put. Brilliant call, Andrew. Thank you so much for that. Call me again soon. Kevin's in Portsmouth. Afternoon, Kevin. Welcome to Talk.
Good afternoon, Mark. I was delighted to hear your previous caller mention Johnson for Harry VC. I have his book, Barefoot Soldier. It's a very, very good read. Very brave.
I'm gonna put that on my summer reading list.
Yeah, Barefoot Soldier.
Going to looking it up as we speak.
Really,
and that's the point, that this isn't about skin colour, is it? It's about Britishness.
It's about Britishness, but my primary reason for calling was everybody is skirting the issue. Labour government said we're going to get them out of hotels, well, where are you going to put them? Well, that's all your rented accommodation gone for goodness knows how long. Then, okay, we're going to get foreigners out of their existing accommodation. Where are you going to put them? So, and it's ignoring the core problem. There are an estimated 1.2 million people here illegally. That figure is going to be way too low. If you recall, if you cast your mind back to when Brexit was going through, and EU people who were here quite legitimately had to end up getting registered, they found there were way more than they thought.
They did. I remember by an order of multitude of how many people had settled in the UK.
It was sort of 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And they were here quite legitimately. Now, the way I would do it, several strands to it. First of all, you start counting people out as well as in. So you check them out on the visa. And if they're overstayers on a holiday visa, you pop round and knock on Auntie's door and say, where are they? People who are here on work visas, student visas and the like must be issued with national insurance numbers, the special ones. So therefore, if you're a student and you're working more than 20 hours a week, the NI system will flag that up and you simply get deported. You've broken our laws, you're abusing our system, out. If you are here as a foreign worker quite legitimately on a, let's say, a 3-year work visa, and you think, oh, I'll just keep going, I won't bother going home, the NI number will flag up your continued employment. We know where you live. Round we go, throw you out. That will solve that problem. Those who are here, existing here illegally, give them a 6 month amnesty. So let's say from the 1st of September, you've got 6 months to sell up and leave, taking your money, your family, the whole lot with you. No questions asked, no harm done. That's it. After that, if we catch you here, all your assets will be sequestered to fund the cost of housing you, feeding you, sending you home. And anybody arriving, floating across the channel on a lilo, gets interned until they can be deported. Well, we can't deport them back to France. We can't deport them back to where they came from because we don't know where that is because they've thrown all their papers away. So, well, it looks like you're going to die in internment. Oh, dear.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because human nature is all about incentives. And if there were not incentives to come to the UK, the boats would stop. And if the incentives were to disappear, people would leave.
Exactly.
Farage, I think Farage spoke to me about 3-4 weeks ago when I spent half a day with him. And he said that the idea of deportations, he said the majority of them, 80-90%, will be voluntary.
Yeah. I mean, give me a incentive. You shouldn't be. You know you shouldn't be here. You can leave with everything intact. If I think, you know what, we'll do that. And then in 3 years you can reapply for a visa and come back. But this time we're going to be checking you out as well as in.
Dave, Kevin, all of this is common sense. Will it ever happen, even under a Reform UK government?
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark. Mix me up with half a day with Nigel. I'll sort it out between us.
I think it will happen, because I think things are going to get so bad in this country. There will be a tipping point of public opinion, and I think it will shock the establishment. And I think it'll be like Brexit times 100.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was talking to Peter Cardwell yesterday about this very issue of Norfolk.
Yeah.
And the point I made is people have done the petitions. They've got them 100,000 signatures or whatever it is. They've had the demos, they've waved the placards, they've had their kids writing to the Prime Minister, and the answer is two fingers. Just lump it.
Yeah.
What options are left? We've done all the peaceful ones, we've done all the protesty ones, we've done all the logical things. Said, look at the evidence, look at what these people can do. Not all of them, but it only takes one.
Correct.
And, you know, eventually, well, I'm sorry, if diplomacy doesn't work, we got to break out the golf clubs and start whacking people with them. I hate the thought of it. I hate the thought of it. But if Crowborough, they're in an old army camp. Now, the worst thing that Crowborough get upset about is the fact that cadets have got nowhere else to train.
Yeah.
If that camp was secure and you're in there and you're not leaving, then there's not an awful lot to worry about apart from the odd escapee. But these guys can wander in and out. They can molest the women folk. They can molest the kids. They can go shoplifting. They can give you the evil eye when you go down the pub. In Calais, when this all started, the whole of the Calais economy was completely trashed because these guys, you know, you're going home a bit early for the ferry, I'm just going to have a last meal in sunny France, have a nice meal, sitting outside in Calais, and suddenly a bunch of these guys would turn up, give you the evil eye, because you're drinking alcohol.
Or you're in their territory, you're on their patch.
Well, it's not that, but also, you know, you've got your half-naked tart with you. Well, you know,
You're very lucky, Kevin. You're very lucky to have a half-naked tart in your life. I'd love one of those.
Well, yeah, so would I actually. But the point is, in their eyes, she's not dressed from head. She's not dressed
No, I
from head
know.
to toe in binliners, and therefore this is all wrong in their eyes. Well, okay, fine, that's fair enough. They're entitled to their opinion. What they're not entitled to do is to terrorise the cafe owner, the restaurant owner, me, my family, my friends. Because where they come from, we don't do things like that. Well, if you don't like it, go away. No one's forcing you to stay. Nobody invited you.
Kevin, I think what you're saying, 3 words: change the incentives or reduce the incentives. It makes common sense. Let me give you a quick stat before I let you go, Kevin, because you sound busy. Yeah. I think you're in the car. You mentioned Crowborough, and that was a cadet centre which youngsters in the region cannot use now for physical activity and fitness and learning their skills, life skills. Yeah, so that's been taken away from them. 500 undocumented men are accommodated in Crowborough, which has changed life overnight for the locals. They're now driving their kids to school. Previously, they would walk to school, go on a bicycle. Young women reluctant to walk home from the pub of an evening, which is totally a rite of passage in the countryside, which now they can't do. Well, that's Crowborough. It's 500 men. Since Labour won the election, Kevin, 70,000 illegal immigrants have entered the UK. That is 140 Crowboroughs.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, if they were locked up, if they were in a proper prison camp, then you could still walk the kids to school and stumble home to the pub. But they're allowed to wander around.
And if they were detained, Kev, they would not come.
Bloody right. If your pardon,
you talked a lot of sense. Kevin, you sound busy. What are you up to? Where are you on your way to?
I'm just coming back from the galvanisers. I'm actually a driving instructor, and I'm actually off to go and talk to the restorer of a Land Rover, and then on to my next lesson.
Oh, there you go. Listen, you have a great skill. I could do with some advice on the 3-point turn. I've never cracked it.
You've got my number, or
I actually do. Jana's got it.
Seriously, give me a call. I'll talk you through it. And any other help I can give you, you're more than welcome.
Oh, my goodness. That's lovely. If I've got to declare that in the, what was it, the blinking members' public interest. Kevin, brilliant call, and thank you for the offer of help with a three-point turn. More power to you, really enjoyed that. The Register of Members' Interest, there you go, we got there in the end. Jason is in Wiltshire. Hello, Jason.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you for taking the call.
Thanks for calling. What's on your mind this afternoon?
I was listening to your colleagues you had on earlier talking about the Renters Reform Bill.
Yeah.
As a landlord, I'm actually quite in favour of it.
Ah.
The reason why, it will separate the wheat from the chaff. When you get someone like myself, we keep everything, all the properties are up together. We work with our tenants. If there's any issues, we'll go and address them. So happy tenant means they'll be paying their rent. The ones we've had within our premises, we've had one for 8 years, one for 5 years, and one for about 3 years. And they're absolutely wonderful. So if there'd been any problems with them, we could have got rid of them before, obviously, the renters' right, come in earlier in the year. But what it's going to worm out is those landlords that don't want to comply with things, i.e. EICR health, safety checks, gas checks. If a tenant's got a problem, that they have water leaks or whatever, you see it, these landlords don't want to address it. It's going to be those landlords more it's going to affect, because as far as I can see with how the rental property market is, you've got good tenants, they're happy with you, you're happy with them, the chances of them moving are going to be pretty slim to none.
Yes, I mean, landlords are incentivised to keep their tenants for years and years and years.
Well, yeah, that's what.
Because then you don't have to worry, and you put the rent up by what, a few percent, 3 or 5% a year.
To be fair, if you haven't, I don't like to try and keep putting it up for them. We've got it that it covers everything that we want. Because I said I'm self-employed. This is my pension. So if they're in there and they're continuously paying, they're keeping the property up together. You haven't got to spend loads on whatever. You're not going to suddenly start trying to fleece the rent increase. I know someone that's tried it, and they've actually, under this new renters bill, have declined to pay it, which within their rights they can. I mean, what tenants we've got, they're probably paying, a little bit below the market price, but again, you don't want to hike it right up because you don't want to lose them.
I think that's really good of you, and you're a very ethical entrepreneur and an ethical landlord, Jason. The only issue with these changes is that tenants can refuse to pay and refuse to leave, and you have to go to court to get them out. Surely that's a problem.
It could be, but again, if you've had sort of bad tenants, you had a tenant who was going to be, previous to the Renters Reform Bill, you could get rid of them. I mean, the ones that we've got, and I can probably say a lot of landlords, my father's a landlord, he's got really long-term tenants. If you've got a good relationship with them and you're keeping the place up together, you're doing what they want, it has all the safety checks, everything's done. There's not a reason, there's no reason really why they're not going to pay, if you know what I mean. Again, if you want to get rid of them, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from putting the house up for sale if that's what you want to do.
For sure. But what if you've got bad actors, people that want to game the system and will weaponise these new rules so that you do have to wait and get to court, spend a fortune on a lawyer and lose all that rental income?
Well, you could have had that before the Renters Reform Bill, because you hear of stories, people, they take squatters' rights, they won't move. I mean, you've seen it on the telly, but I still think the main thing is it is going to sort the wheat from the chaff. So those that don't want to do it properly are going to be the ones that come unstuck.
Jason, while I've got you, and I appreciate your support for the renters' rights changes, I think that's very interesting and very enlightening. I'm glad to hear that it's working for you and for your family. But what about this policy by the Tories of evicting people from overseas from social housing? I mean, there's going to be a flood of demand for housing in the private sector, but it's just not there, is it?
No, it's not there. That I've not really sort of read too much into. I mean, I think old Kenny's sort of trying to get on the bandwagon with sort of some of the other parties, but I think she's gone a little bit too far with that. I've not really looked into, I wouldn't want to evict anybody. It doesn't matter who they are. I mean, it's a hard one. What's your thought on it? Do you agree with her?
I beg your pardon, Jason?
Do you agree? What's your thoughts on Kenny sort of...
well, I'll tell you what I think.
The evicting of the...
It's a great question. I think, first of all, that from day one of the new administration, if you're from overseas, no benefits and no social housing.
Completely agree with that bit.
Yeah, but that's obviously the easy bit. In terms of withdrawing it, I'm 50-50. I think that in principle it's the right thing to do, but what's going to happen is it will play out like the ICE raids in the United States. The ICE raids were also the right thing to do, but became a political headache for Donald Trump, and I think the same would happen for the Tories if they won the election.
Yeah, no, I could quite agree with that. But also the other thing is what we've got is this sort of Human Rights Act and all this, all these other acts we're in. I don't think the Tories can just come in and do that. I can't really see it happening.
The only other thing I can think of, Jason, as a halfway house is a phase-out.
Yeah, no, that could be a...
You know, over 5 years. Over 5 years, because I do think the principle of it is very wrong, especially when there are 1.3 million people waiting for social housing who are British.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I do agree with that. But like you said, I know we have obviously these immigrants, but it's sort of... It's just chucking somebody out on the street. Where are they going to do? They're going to have to put them somewhere.
You're right.
You can't just dump them and chuck them on the street. They're going to have to... Will they go back into hotels, or are they going to house them somewhere else? HMOs? What are they going to do?
But isn't that
throw them on the street?
But is that not the lot of young Brits when they graduate from university, that they've got to find somewhere to live? How are they different?
Well, they're not. But if you've got some young Brits, have they still got family at home they can live in? But it's just the thing is, if she's going to chuck them out, where are they going to go?
Do you not think many would return to the EU?
They may do. I don't know. I don't know. So I've not really looked into, this Tory sort of latest thing that she wants to do with that. Obviously, my thing was talking about the Renters' Rights Bill with me as a landlord, not a Conservative Party chucking a load of immigrants out.
Well, Jason, I think you've been very measured and very even-handed in your assessment of both the changes to renters' rights and also your response to this new Tory policy announcement. And I think that actually, when it comes to what Kemi's announcing, the devil is in the detail. Jason, you're quite rightly asking, where will these people go? How is this policy going to work? Jason, an enlightening call. I learnt loads. Please call me again soon, 0344 499 1000. We have a developing story. The prolific sexual predator Simon Levy has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and violently raping a third amid a string of mischances to stop him. Levy, aged 40, left the rape victim for dead in January last year before going on to kill Carmenza Valencia Trujillo 2 months later, and 39-year-old Cheryl Wilkins 5 months after that in August 25. It can also now be reported that Levy was jailed earlier this year for 6 years with a 3-year extended licence period after he was found guilty of 11 counts of sexual assault between the 14th of April 2022 and the 29th of May 2025. The Telegraph have revealed that the sex offender murdered the 2 women months after police lowered his risk level because of his poor eyesight. You heard me right. This sounds like a scandal. This sounds like something that's going to make headlines in the days ahead. You're listening to Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, an almighty royal row has blown up between American cultural icon Martha Stewart and Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. Martha Stewart was at a posh dinner party in California and revealed to People magazine that Meghan had been boasting about her return to the United Kingdom and her face-to-face meeting with King Charles and Queen Camilla. Well, the Duchess has denied chatting about her reunion with the King, and it's turned out to be something of a diplomatic incident between the two rather famous women. Let's get reaction now from another famous woman, the brilliant royal biographer Angela Levin. Good afternoon, Angela.
Good afternoon.
What a drama. I mean, this is a classic example.
It made me laugh so much.
It's hilarious, isn't it?
Yes.
It is a case of he said, she said. A source close to the Duchess of Sussex claimed that Martha Stewart must have been confused because the pair were not seated near one another.
She is 85. So Meghan saying that would absolutely make her furious. She doesn't want anybody to recognise her age, and quite right too. Very cunning. But she was also quite cynical with Meghan. I mean, when she first met her, she said that I hope you know what you're doing, which was not terribly nice. And this one was, she said, assuming she's heard Meghan, she said, if you're an actress, it's very hard to trans over to a princess and then to become a homemaking guru at any TV show. So Meghan wouldn't like that because Meghan can do anything. She's just, whatever it is, she's top of the bomb. And it's sort of funny that they both have been absolutely spiting at each other.
Well, yes, it's pretty outrageous, isn't it? And of course, Martha Stewart is everything Meghan Markle would like to be. Yes. An icon of homemaking, of cookery, a fantastic lifestyle brand that she's created. Meanwhile, Meghan's As Ever brand is a total flop.
Yes, because she was doing very silly things, you know, little sprinkles and tea and, you know, jam, whereas somebody who really knows has worked incredibly hard and gone right through what makes something really edible and delicious. And she beats Meghan by far. But it's very funny. It'd be very interesting to see how long it is where they're both saying, no, I wasn't, oh, yes, you were, oh, no, you weren't, sort of thing.
And of course, as usual, the Sussexes communicate through their relentless and ruthless public relations machine which never sleeps. And this is somebody close to the couple revealing that Martha Stewart has misheard this. This is a classic sort of Sussex propaganda, isn't it? That yes. It's always a source, and we know it's come directly from the Duchess.
Yes. Of course. I mean, she's very, very good at these sort of things, isn't she? That's why she's sort of stayed alive, because it's not her skills, not at all. And none of her skills are any good whatsoever. But she's got Harry with his name and his, you know, a lot of money, but she's not herself got anything that is fantastic. She's quite attractive, but not so much now. Did you see her going round on her birthday yesterday? Yeah. I mean, that was completely ludicrous. It was.
Well, she seems to have thrown herself a birthday party.
By herself, on her own, plus her two dogs. But what really got me, which was very vulgar, was that she had a little plastic tiara on her head, which I thought was actually being rude for the King and the Queen. You don't do that. It was a silly little thing.
No, you're mocking royal iconography with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that she is, she did also on her T-shirt have, it's giving Mrs. Now, what do you think of that? Or shall I tell you what I think first?
Oh, I want your interpretation.
Well, that is Mrs. So she's going to be a Mrs. and she's giving because she knows that her husband loves her. So she is saying that she's not going to dump Harry. She's going to go a little bit longer. But I think she's just wearing it on at the front is just, again, sort of downhill, very rude, horrible.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, Angela, I see the tectonic plates of that relationship between Meghan and Harry changing and shifting. And I felt that maybe 2 years ago they were heading certainly for a professional divorce, with Meghan developing her own brand, and maybe even an actual divorce. But it seems now that with Meghan's lifestyle proving unsuccessful, her lifestyle brand, with the broadcast contracts disappearing, for the first time in a while, Meghan needs Harry again.
She does, absolutely. And so she also has to go to England, which will make her furious. I mean, she was very rude when she came out of having met the King and Queen. And she said, oh, they were very rude to us, as if we're not part of anything. Well, they have not been part of anything by their own wishes. I thought that was actually extremely rude and extremely unnecessary, but she can't bear it because she's got to do it, but she's lost a lot of money. Harry's lost a lot of money, so you've got to try and get these people who you don't like to be kind and to give you some money and to do what will help you keep going. But I think it's such a phony thing. I think that's the most terrible thing to say, because, he might not have said what she did over the dinner table, but actually to say how awful it was to speaking to the King and the Queen. Why it was awful, I know, is that they wouldn't let any photographs be taken, you see. Yeah. Meghan and Harry desperately wanted photographs of the King with the little children, and that would have boosted them up, and it would have cost her, they could sell it for a lot of money. But they weren't having that, and they didn't want Camilla in. But Camilla was there, and she was listening and making sure that nothing happened that she wasn't okay with and the King would be okay with. He's got better things to do than to analyse something that they say. And that's how it went. But, when someone... It's very interesting because each of these things are something that they have to say, something and put your... And I hate that. It's very ungracious.
It is ungracious, and whether it's the Kardashians, the Beckhams, the Clooneys, Gwyneth Paltrow, or now Martha Stewart, Meghan seems to always fall out with celebrities.
Oh, yes. I mean, because she's a very unpleasant person. That's simple. People have moved back, don't want anything to do with it. And that's why she's having a party on her own in the kitchen with some balloons and 2 dogs.
And what do you make of these swimsuit photographs that we're seeing Meghan in? Because many are drawing parallels with Princess Diana and her famous one piece.
Yeah, she did. Diana jumped in like that. So she sort of wants to do it. But she took all the balloons and she wants to show off her body, you see. And she wants to show that she's got nice thin legs like Diana had. But Diana had much nicer legs than her skinny ones. And it's just, it's all look at me, isn't it? It's just she's not doing anything, really. She's not winning. She's not winning. She's not doing wonderful cakes or sandwiches or anything. But she's jumping into a pool.
You've spent months at close quarters with Harry, Prince Harry, as his former biographer.
Months,
15 months is a long time.
Yes.
What do you think he makes of his wife's recent activities? Do you think he's supportive?
Well, he is passionate about her. He is absolutely passionate, and I think he accepts a lot of nastiness and unkindness from her. But on the other hand, if he wants to move away and doesn't want to be with her, there's trouble with the children, and also how is it going to work? And I think that's a very, very difficult thing. And he will think that he's really failed and the family were right. William was right. The King was right. who is this woman? Wait, don't rush it. Don't have a quick meeting and then marry her. And she did say last week, actually, I wish that I had waited longer like William before we married. To me, that means I'm out. But on the other hand, you can't do that. It's not too late, but of course it is too late, because he said she's wonderful, she's the most important woman, so he tries to do his best.
I mean, reading between the lines, Angela, given that you know Harry well, you're painting a picture of a young man, well, he's not that young, 41, that feels trapped.
Yes.
Is Harry trapped?
Very good comment, because what he said when he was interviewed by Oprah Winfrey, that first terrible interview, he said, I am free and my father and William are trapped. And they were very upset about that, because they do it because they want to do it. They are our people to look after us. But now Harry is the one who is trapped. Brilliant that you brought that up.
Angela, what do you make of these rumours that the Sussexes will be invited to Balmoral this summer?
I want to scream. I want to say, please don't do this, because I think Harry can bring his father round his little finger. And his father now is not so well, or he seems okay, but we realise he's still got cancer, and he has got his son. But I think he's got to know what his son wants to do to him, and it would be very bad, and to the whole, all of us, it would be dreadful. So that he's got to say, although I love him and all that, I won't take him. And I think they will make a mess. They will be very difficult. Meghan will never do what they ask. You know, she had to comment on that it was not very nice where she had 5 days there. You don't do that. It's just not polite. She won't do anything she's told. She has to be half in, half out. Otherwise, there's nothing going on. But the king doesn't want that, because that's what the promise was with the Queen, late Queen. So, you know, it's very difficult. But I think that there's a lot of phoniness. I love my father. He's so wonderful. Oh, yes, let's go. But then underneath it, I think they're rotten.
Wow, damning words. Angela, lovely to see you again. We'll catch up soon. Royal biographer and broadcaster, the doyen of royal journalism, Angela Levin. They are rotten. What a headline. More to come. This is Talk.
This wouldn't be a story without the plagiarism allegations. That's what's the start.
Would it be a story if he was white?
It wouldn't be a story if he was white at all, because he wouldn't have had there's no scrutiny that would have been put on him.
Well, he wouldn't have become famous, would he? He wouldn't have been a guest editor on the Day programme, the BBC, because he wasn't the youngest white professor at Cambridge.
He was the guest editor because he was talented. He could be talented. I've done things in the media because I'm good at things, not because I'm black. Like, we don't just get things because we're black, we get things because we're good.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Rachel in Wales, good afternoon, Mark. Kemi Badenoch is simply copying Reform's policies. Remember the Boris wave or the COVID hypocrisy by her party? Only this week she's defended a neo-Nazi. She's mocked Farage at the last PMQs. It's clear she's part of the establishment, and I, for one, do not believe a word that comes out of her mouth. Shimmy says the only thing Kemi Badenoch wants is to be the first woman of colour as British Prime Minister. End of. Thank you for all the calls and texts. I've really enjoyed it this week. Back on Weekend Breakfast tomorrow, then I'm off on my hollybobs after that. I will miss you hugely, but back at the end of August. Terry is in Cambridge. Good afternoon, Terry.
Oh, good afternoon, Mark.
Thank you for your call.
Well, thanks for taking my call. Mark, what I would say to you is I, like many, many of your listeners, I'm sure running into the millions, listen to your programme every day and have the same reaction every day, which is anger, frustration, and the feeling that basically there's nothing that we can do to try and solve these enormous problems that we've got in this country. I mean, the fact is that most people know that we're facing a national crisis that I believe can only be overcome by a tightly knit together group of people that support or at least tolerate, will not tolerate the sort of situation we've had for so many years. What I've come to believe over quite a long period of time is that parliamentary democracy in the form that we've had in this country for the last 40-odd years has so badly let down the people of this country.
Yeah.
And I think there comes a time when you say this cannot carry on anymore. The Conservative and Labour politicians over all that period of time have lied and cheated the British people to the point that this country now is facing a national crisis. And there has to be a point where you think there's got to be an alternative. And I'm a great believer in Reform UK, and I believe firmly that this is the last opportunity we've got to salvage something for this country. And if that was not able to work, we have to look at some alternative way of actually governing in this country, and we have to look at possibly unpalatable opportunities or other decisions where maybe what we need, and it sounds slightly dramatic, but to me, it's got some benefit. We need a strong person in this country that's going to run this country for the benefit of the indigenous population. You know, we're not a breadbasket for the rest of the world. Everybody else around the world has been abusing this country, abusing the benefits and the wealth of this country. I think we're coming to a point now, because the anger is so enormous in this country that if something doesn't change, there will be an almighty explosion in this country. You can feel it when you talk to just ordinary people, which I've done as a member of Reform, just talking to people, and you can feel the anger and the civil unrest that will come from possibly an outrageous terrorist incident in this country will be the thing that really forces the issue to the point where who knows where we're going to go with this. But the fact is, we need, if Reform can't perform the way I hope they will, the alternative to that is just one person. We're talking about one person. People will immediately look back in history and say, that can't be done, and that really takes you down a very dangerous path, because I know what people will think immediately. But we need a period of time where one person has got the authority, the power, and the belief to be able to do the things that need to be done in this country for the benefit of the indigenous British people.
Well, Terry, what a powerful call. You spoke very well, and I think you're right. If you look at the fact that people have been voting for lower immigration for 30 years, and we had Brexit, and what's happened? It's gone up, 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 the opposite of the will of the people. Terry, you're a legend. Call me again soon. Closing out the show is a brand new caller to Talk, and it's Shirley in Birmingham. Hello, Shirley. Thank you for making the call.
Hi, Mark. Regarding British housing for British people, I'm baffled as to why the EU folk are considered British. We've left the EU, we've had Brexit.
Correct.
Why would you say everybody in Europe can have British provision and you can just turn up here? That really is perverse.
It doesn't go that way the other way, does it? You can't go to Paris and get a free house.
No, and we can't afford them. I don't know why we say if you're EU, you're okay. It makes no sense. Indefinite leave to remain was the equivalent of a British passport. So if you've been here 40 years, 50 years, why should you leave your council house? Indefinite leave to remain was a British passport equivalent, and people who come in now have no access to public funds.
Do you agree that it will be a problem to evict hundreds of thousands of EU citizens from their council house or council flat?
The problem is that, one, we've had Brexit. The way I would do it, I would say you've got to have a passport, because if you're from the EU, you come in with like a kind of work card.
Correct.
Like a green card. There's no passport. So I would go back to, you've got to have a passport by birth. I would start with Eastern Europe, right? You must have a full passport. Otherwise, and add a visa to that.
And because that's a simple one. Basically, the deal breaker for you, the red line, born in the country, Shirley.
That would help, but indefinite leave to remain shouldn't be taken off. I don't understand just being allowed in with the green card thing. Anybody, I mean, there are East Europeans here who've come in over 60, they've gotten the government pension, they've never worked here. And by the way, the government pension has been abolished, so that's another thing. I don't know what the white working class are going to say,